Chapter 234. Mr. Leon, I congratulate you on translating such a best-selling book. However, in my opinion, the book The Biography of Steve Jobs is selling so well because of Mr. Steve Jobs, right? Martel shook his head. He felt that his words were a bit too harsh, so he said apologetically, "Please forgive me for saying this, because I also admire Mr. Steve Jobs. Apple's products are popular all over the world, so I don't think Mr. Steve Jobs' biography will be bad." Poplar Fruit shrugged and said, "I know what you mean, but I want to tell you that before the new book was released, the readers knew that it was me who translated it, so our pre-sales were greatly affected." Poplar Fruit took out a piece of paper from his briefcase and pushed it to Martel. In front of Martel, he said, "However, after they read my translation of the book, they became very willing to recommend it to their friends. Therefore, after the release, our sales increased again. This is our sales report. You can refer to it." Young. Martel picked up the sales report of the biography of Steve Jobs and looked at it. He said, "Well, although there is no way to prove what you said, we assume that your translation of the biography of Steve Jobs has indeed been recognized by the readers. But you should know that my book is not the same type of literary work as the biography of Steve Jobs." He was right. The biography of Steve Jobs could be said to be documentary literature, which was different from his novel, The Fantasy of a Young PI. So he said, "I don't think that your success in the biography of Steve Jobs can be transferred to my book." Looking at Yang, Martel was a bit stubborn. Zheng Yujie was a bit worried for Poplar Fruit. But Poplar Fruit was not afraid. He smiled and said, "This is what I want to tell you. Not only can I achieve success in documentary literature, but I can also translate novels that the readers like." Yang. Martel was interested and asked, "Oh, is that so? Why do you say that?" "Because of my understanding of your work," Poplar Fruit said confidently. Poplar Fruit began to talk to Yang. Martel discussed various details of his work. In the beginning, Martel was listening attentively, but towards the end, he began to immerse himself in the conversation. He even argued with Yang Guo with a red face. Towards the end, his face was full of excitement, as if he had met a soulmate. "Haha." Martel laughed heartily and said, "I've held so many speeches and book signings, but I've never met a reader who understands me as well as you do. You're right. You do have a deep understanding of my works. I want to thank you for this. I want to shake hands with you again." Yang Guo smiled and took out her right hand to hold Yang Ming. Martel stretched out his right hand. When Zheng Yujie saw this scene, she heaved a sigh of relief. Martel finally relented. But he didn't. Perhaps he was afraid of being cheated by Yilin Publishing House. He was particularly stubborn and cautious today. Martel shook his head and said, "I know why you are so keen on my book. I guess you must have received some news that my book is being filmed by the Chinese director Lian. Just like The Biography of Steve Jobs, you want to take advantage of the release of the movie to promote my book again. Am I right?" Martel said. He stopped Poplar Fruit, who was about to speak, and said with a smile, "Mr. Leon, I know you have put in a lot of effort to persuade me. You speak English very well, better than me, and you do have a deep understanding of my book. But I don't know if it will be as attractive as the English version after you translate it into Chinese, because the cultural characteristics of Chinese and English are different. That's what Yilin Publishing House explained to me. So if I give the book to you, I have to take a risk. But if I give the book to Yilin Publishing House, with the fame of the great director Lian in your country, I think my book will sell well again." Martel said without hiding anything. Zheng Yujie's face turned white and red. She didn't know what to do. "Yang? Mr. Martel, do you want people to buy your book just because of a movie? Do you want people to read the bad words in your book and praise Lian loudly and abuse you? Do you want your book to be popular this time and continue to be unknown in the future?" Yang Guo didn't care about Yang Guo. Martel flinched at his words, his smile faded, and he asked him seriously, "Yang?" Martel was stunned. He wanted to say something but hesitated. He silently looked at Yang Guo. "I know you are worried about the risk, but I want to tell you that there is no other translator more suitable than me to translate your book. And my translation can really give your book a new life in the Chinese mainland." Poplar Fruit took out a small stack of about 20 pages of A4 paper from his briefcase. What is this? Martel asked doubtfully. This is part of my translation. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, I translated the first part of your novel. Then you can take it to someone who understands Chinese to help evaluate it and see if it is worth his money. Yang, Mr. Martel, you can find a professional survey company to help you do this survey. Zheng Yujie suddenly interjected. For example, you can ask them to randomly find 100 Chinese students to read this translation and see their attitude towards it. That way, you'll know whether it's worth handing your book over to Leon to translate, and whether it's worth handing it over to our publishing house to operate for you. In the end, Zheng Yujie dropped a bomb. Before you make a conclusion, please ask the survey company to pay for the cost. If you are still not satisfied, then you don't have to pay a cent. Poplar Fruit looked at her in surprise. Yang? Martel fell into silence. His fingers gently tapped on the translation that Poplar Fruit put in front of him. Every tap seemed to knock on the hearts of Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie. They looked nervously at the thin middle-aged man. They had already played all their cards. They could only resign themselves to fate. Only Yang? Martel suddenly smiled. His big hand gently patted on Poplar Fruit's translation. Then he held it in his left hand and stood up. He reached out his right hand to Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie, saying, With such conditions, do I have any reason to refuse? Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 235. Walking out, Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie looked at each other and smiled. Poplar Fruit looked into Zheng Yujie's eyes and said, Thank you. Zheng Yujie held a small bag in both hands and hung it in front of her body. She walked slowly with Poplar Fruit on the school road with the spring breeze blowing and flowers blooming on both sides. She smiled and said, Thank me for what? Thank you for trusting me so much. Poplar Fruit smiled and said, Aren't you afraid that my translation won't pass the investigation and won't pass the test? Martel's discerning eye? If you think it's fair to investigate, will your translation be liked by everyone? Zheng Yujie didn't answer directly, but asked Poplar Fruit. That's for sure. Poplar Fruit said confidently. In other fields, Poplar Fruit may be afraid, but in his professional field of translation, Poplar Fruit had 100% confidence. You believe in your ability, and I also believe in my vision. The man I approve of will not fail. Zheng Yujie turned her head and looked at Poplar Fruit with a burning gaze. Haha. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said embarrassedly, Yujie, do you know that your sentence is very ambiguous? Zheng Yujie smiled and didn't answer. She turned her head and walked straight to the rented car. Poplar Fruit smiled, shook his head and followed. How is it? RFA, who acted as the driver, stood holding the open door and asked anxiously. I don't know yet. Zheng Yujie dropped a sentence and got into the back seat. What? You don't know yet? RFA looked at Zheng Yujie inexplicably, then looked at Poplar Fruit and asked, Brother Yang, what's going on? We don't even know if it will work yet. Poplar Fruit patted him on the shoulder and smiled. Let's talk in the car. After the car drove off, Poplar Fruit sorted out the cause and effect of the matter with RFA. I see. So, are we still waiting in the Big Apple? RFA asked. You can have a holiday when you go back this afternoon. Zheng Yujie took out her tablet and entered some memos on it. She said without looking up, You can go back to China or play in the United States for a few days before going back. Poplar Fruit and I will stay and wait for the news. And he was not waiting in the Big Apple. Yang. Martel told them that his speech and signing in New York had ended, and the next stop was various major cities in California. Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie decided to follow him and stroll around California. After Poplar Fruit got in the car, he got out of his work mode. The scene of his daughter in the hotel immediately appeared in his mind. He couldn't wait to take out his mobile phone and call the glasses girl. After he got to know that his daughter was fine, Poplar Fruit's hanging heart slowly settled down. In the evening, Poplar Fruit was lying in bed watching TV with his daughter, whose mood had finally stabilized after taking Chinese medicine. Zheng Yujie pushed the door in and saw SpongeBob SquarePants and Poplar Fruit's expression on the TV. She laughed. "You're here?" Poplar Fruit looked at Zheng Yujie, who was still wearing a bathrobe, and laughed. "Why are you running around dressed like this?" Zheng Yujie looked at Poplar Fruit and said, "What are you afraid of? Is there anyone in the hotel corridor at night? I'm right across from you. And I saved you in a flash." In fact, Poplar Fruit wanted to say, "Aren't you afraid of me? I'm a young man who can turn into a wolf at any time." However, when he thought of Zheng Yujie's tough character, Poplar Fruit swallowed his frivolous words. If he said it out loud, she might tease him instead. "Tell me, why are you looking for me?" Poplar Fruit asked with a smile. "Why don't you stay and watch this cartoon? I think it's quite interesting." Kiki also thought it was quite interesting. She couldn't take her eyes off the TV. However, in the United States, cartoons were all in English. He didn't know if Kiki could understand it. Zheng Yujie pouted and said, "I don't watch cartoons. It's so childish." She looked at Kiki in Poplar Fruit's arms and knew that with Kiki there, nothing would happen tonight. So she talked about business. "By the way, I just called Apple." Zheng Yujie said, "They heard that you're here, and they want to invite you to visit Apple. Also, what's the name of the CEO who replaced Steve Jobs?" "Cook." Poplar Fruit reminded her. "Yes, Cook, he also wants to see you," Zheng Yujie said. "Okay. When are we leaving?" Poplar Fruit asked with interest. "Tomorrow." The next day, Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie left the group and got on the plane from Big Apple to San Francisco. Poplar Fruit wanted to experience the cross-state train in the United States. In the end, Zheng Yujie told him with disdain that with the slow speed of the United States train, it would take at least 3 days to go from the East Coast to the West Coast of the United States. Poplar Fruit had no choice but to give up. After getting off the plane, Poplar Fruit and the rest took a car to Cupertino, where Apple was located. It was one of the core cities of the United States' Silicon Valley. In the last century, Cupertino was just a small town. In the 20th century, with the rapid development of technology, Cupertino got on the train to Spring. Its economy began to take off, and it became the 27th most livable small city in the United States, and the second in California. As they arrived late, Poplar Fruit and the rest went to Apple's headquarters the next day. Unfortunately, the construction of Apple's spaceship headquarters building had not really started yet. Poplar Fruit could not see the legendary sci-fi building designed by Steve Jobs when he was alive. However, to be able to enter Apple, Poplar Fruit felt like it was a dream. Here, he saw a lot of technology that could only be seen in movies, such as smart homes, service robots, and the electric balance car that had just started to become popular in China. They could be seen everywhere. In Apple, there was a public relations manager who accompanied them all the way and introduced them to a lot of cool places in Apple. Of course, Poplar Fruit and the rest could not go to the core area of Apple's development of the iPhone and other products. This was not hard to imagine. After all, it could be said that there was a strict culture of confidentiality there. Cook actually only took 10 minutes to meet with Poplar Fruit and the rest. He did not make things very complicated with great fanfare. Poplar Fruit knew that he was not a big shot. He could not let the CEO of the world's largest company receive him, as if he was receiving a national leader, right? Of course, Cook still gave people a very friendly feeling. It was just that he did not know if it was his own illusion. But Poplar Fruit always felt that Cook looked at him as if he was looking at a beautiful woman. He almost had goosebumps. From the short chat with Cook, Poplar Fruit felt that Cook did not come to thank him for translating Steve Jobs' biography. It seemed that Cook felt that he had done a very good job and wanted to get to know him. In his words, he revealed that he wanted to help him translate his biography in the future. Although he did not think much of it, Poplar Fruit still gave a very happy response. God knows if he could be a celebrity like Steve Jobs. God knows when he would be qualified to publish a biography. Anyway, it was not difficult to give a guarantee without any disadvantages to the CEO of such a big company, right? Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Please use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 236. After leaving Apple, Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie were nowhere to be found. Although California's Sunshine Coast was very famous, it was not a good idea to go to the beach in March when it was still a little cold. I want to go to Los Angeles. Zheng Yujie looked at Poplar Fruit and said, I have an aunt who lives there. Why don't you come along? In the end, Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie got into a car headed to Los Angeles. However, Poplar Fruit did not follow Zheng Yujie to her aunt's place. He suddenly remembered that he had a friend who lived near Los Angeles. Alan? Adehan. Ever since they met in Beijing last year, Poplar Fruit and Alan had chatted a few times online, and even played games together. Alan had long urged Poplar Fruit to come over to his house. If Poplar Fruit did not mention Los Angeles, he would have forgotten about it. Alan lived in Irvine, a small city in Southern California that was not far from Los Angeles. This unknown small city had a world-famous gaming company like Blizzard in terms of business. There were also many semiconductor and computer industry giants in the Northern American headquarters. In terms of educational resources, there was a branch of the University of California. There were also countless outstanding high schools. According to the data, Irvine High School was ranked 8th in the list of the best high schools in America in 2011, and 2nd in the list of the best public high schools in America. Poplar Fruit carried his daughter, and carried a huge backpack as he got into a taxi in Irvine. Although the driver of the taxi was a black man, he looked through the window and saw that most of the people on the streets of Irvine were Asian. This discovery shocked Poplar Fruit. He thought that there were enough Asians in Cupertino, but compared to this place, it was still lacking. Thinking about the pleasant climate, excellent school district, ideal security, and other factors, Poplar Fruit was relieved. Just the advantage of having a good school was enough to attract the Chinese to flock here. When they arrived, Alan warmly welcomed Poplar Fruit and Kiki. When they met, he gave them a big hug. However, Kiki was not very satisfied with this bearded uncle. She turned around and hugged her father, unwilling to pay attention to him. Alan smiled awkwardly. He had a falling out with his wife not long ago. His wife was angry and took his 2 children to Florida for a vacation. The life of a bachelor was a bit unrestrained. Poplar Fruit was surprised by Alan's house. Alan was a wealthy man with a net worth of tens of billions. His house was no different from an ordinary American's. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary 2-story building with its own lawn outside. From the inside, there was nothing special. It was no different from the movies. Of course, if there was anything special, it would be his super cool game room and living room. There were all kinds of game consoles, Wii, Xbox, PS3, and so on. As long as it could be seen in the market, it had everything. There was even a 3D game console set that was rarely known in the market. Alan had one too. Wow! Poplar Fruit exclaimed in Chinese. Bro, what you said on the internet is true. You really built a game arcade city. Of course. As a game enthusiast, I won't save money for myself in this aspect. Alan said proudly. Hearing this, Poplar Fruit rolled his eyes. Save money? The expenses here are not even a fraction of your account, right? I really don't know where he spends all his money. However, looking at Alan's living room, Poplar Fruit had a vague understanding of the reason why Alan and his wife fell out. In Alan's house, Poplar Fruit was more at ease. Although it was a little messy, there might be a housekeeper cleaning it every day, so it wouldn't be littered with garbage. Sitting on the sofa in the living room, Poplar Fruit moved his butt. It was so comfortable that he wanted to cry out. It seemed that they were all very expensive goods. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so soft and bouncy when sitting on it. Poplar Fruit looked around. Alan shaved his beard and came out. Looking at Poplar Fruit, he asked curiously, "What are you looking for?" Poplar Fruit said, "I'm looking to see if your house is like Bill Gates, hiding some high-tech products in a low-key way." Alan curled his lips and said, "Don't look for it. I'm not a geek. I'm only interested in games. I won't look at anything else if it's placed in front of me." It seemed to be true. He pulled out a crib from the bedroom downstairs and asked Poplar Fruit to put Kiki in. "Don't hold your daughter. We men need a little space. Come on, join Alan's gaming party." Poplar Fruit had been itching for a long time. He put his daughter in, but after thinking about it, he asked Alan to find a coat and a few toys. The toys were for Kiki to play with, and the coat was used to cover the front of the crib. This way, Alan's 2K TV screen wouldn't flash Kiki's young eyes. Let's go. Alan waved the Wii stick, and a whip came down from the TV and hit the horse he was controlling. The horse raised its front legs high, whistled, and rushed forward. It was Poplar Fruit's first time playing these home games. Although he had seen them in videos before, it still took some time for him to get used to it. After spending more than 20 minutes learning how to play, Poplar Fruit finally got used to it. Why was it a gaming party? Because the two of them changed the game consoles and jumped through the catalog. In 5 hours, they played more than 40 games, not including the intermission time when they were feeding Kiki. The two of them had a 50% chance of winning. This didn't mean that the two of them were equal in strength. On the contrary, the difference in strength between the two of them was very clear. Poplar Fruit could be said to have a complete victory in games that required a lot of manipulation, such as shooting, action, racing, and so on. However, when it came to RPG and strategy games, Alan could often win. In the beginning, Alan had a good time torturing Poplar Fruit. Later, he felt more and more that teaching Poplar Fruit to play home games was a big mistake. It was like inviting a wolf into the house. I'm not playing anymore. Alan threw away the remote control in his hand and lied on the sofa. His character had been shot in the head by Poplar Fruit for the nth time. Alan looked at the screen full of blood with tears streaming down his face. He decided to give up playing with Poplar Fruit, this pervert. If he didn't give up, then he would be a fool. Poplar Fruit smirked at the side. Don't be so proud. Alan shouted. Tomorrow I'll take you to the shooting range to see a real gun. Alan's shooting skills will make you call me Daddy. He actually learned a tongue twister from a black singer. Poplar Fruit snickered in his heart. It wasn't like he hadn't been to the shooting range. It wasn't like he hadn't touched a real gun. Compared to the real gun, he didn't know who would call him Daddy. Begging for monthly votes. Begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to smash the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 237. Let's go. Alan lay down and picked up his jacket from the other side of the sofa. He stood up and said, I'll take you to dinner. If Alan was alone, he could have just ordered a pizza delivery. However, he had friends from afar today. He couldn't possibly ask Poplar Fruit to eat pizza with him, could he? He had already thought about it. There was a Mexican restaurant in the city that tasted great. It would be good to take Poplar Fruit there to try it out. Poplar Fruit nodded. He picked up Kiki, stuffed a bag of diapers into his trouser pocket, and followed Alan out of the door. When he opened the door, the lawn outside was dyed with the afterglow of the setting sun. The whole street was empty, and there were only a few white pigeons singing on the telephone poles. However, as soon as he walked out of the door, Poplar Fruit felt like he was being peeped at. This time, the feeling of being peeped at was even stronger than before. Before he could come back to his senses to investigate the source, a sense of crisis emerged in his heart. It was a sense of crisis that made his soul fly out of his body. All the movements seemed to be done subconsciously. Poplar Fruit hugged his daughter tightly with one hand and pulled Alan back by the collar with the other. Both of them fell on the steps of the corridor outside the door. With a loud bang, a hole exploded in the door behind them. The wooden stubble was a little charred, and the wisps of black smoke told them that the hole had just appeared. Be careful. Poplar Fruit murmured what he wanted to say. Alan, who was dizzy from the fall, still hadn't come back to his senses. Bang. Bang. There were 2 loud bangs. The bullets hit the stone pillars and railings in the corridor, and the broken stones fell to the ground, crashing nonstop. Poplar Fruit hugged his daughter to his chest, turned over, and used his body to block the falling stones. Then he quickly dragged Alan, who was screaming nonstop, and crawled back. Bullets whistled through the air, windows and flower pots were smashed, and the white pigeons flew away in fright. These scenes that could only be seen in movies were actually happening right next to him. Poplar Fruit's mind went blank. He could only instinctively drag Aaron to a safer place, praying that no bullets would fall on him. Hiding in the house, Poplar Fruit dragged Alan behind the sofa, shook his shoulder and shouted, Alan, where are you hurt? Only then did Alan come back to his senses. He rubbed his eyes and touched his body. Panting, he said, "No, I'm not hurt." Perhaps a small stone had splashed into his eyes. What underscore the underscore hell underscores underskirt? What the F asterisk CK is this? Poplar Fruit patted the floor in panic and cursed. "Alan, I think you should call 911. Otherwise, when the police come, they can only collect our corpses." Kiki was so scared that she buried her head in her father's arms, trembling nonstop. Poplar Fruit hugged her tighter. Perhaps she would feel more at ease if she heard her father's heartbeat. But her father's heartbeat was messed up too. Poplar Fruit was not Superman. Although he had captured armed robbers before, he had never been so close to death. If he had reacted a little slower with the first bullet, he or Alan would have died. Yes, they would have died without a doubt. Just look at the big hole that the bullet had made in the door. Alan nodded and took out his phone while trembling. He dialed the U.S. police number and told them about the situation of the gunshot attack and his location. He shouted, "I have already told Director Frank that it was not a prank, but you didn't believe me. Now, did you hear the gunshots? SVD, do you know? If you don't come, I will be dead, and you will be in the newspapers tomorrow." It turned out that Alan had received several death threats before. The bloody letter scared him, but the director of the police station told him that it was just chicken blood, so he didn't have to be too nervous. "I told you." Alan hid behind the sofa helplessly, listening to the assassin outside shooting the window into pieces. He scolded, "Warcraft can't be updated with a new version. That's something we can't do. We have done everything we can, but if we can't do it, we can't do it. Do you think killing me will work?" Poplar Fruit gently put his daughter on the sofa, then turned over, wanting to close the door. Just as he poked his head out, Poplar Fruit saw a man in black across the street with a pistol out and walking towards him. Shocked, Poplar Fruit quickly hooked the door with his foot, then scrambled away. Just as he dodged, there were a few more holes in the door, and then the man in black shot the door lock away with a precise shot. Looking at this power, it was estimated that it was a Desert Eagle. This made Poplar Fruit helpless. What was the use of his martial arts? In front of an unreasonable gun, would he still have a chance to use his fists and feet? He was afraid that if he rushed out, there would be a few more holes in his body. F***CK. Poplar Fruit crawled back, held his daughter in his arms and scolded, "He is coming." Poplar Fruit pushed Alan and asked, "Is there a basement? Let's go in and hide. When the police come, we will be safe." Alan put the phone back in his pocket. He finally calmed down, pulled Poplar Fruit, and said, "Let's go. Come with me." Poplar Fruit held his daughter and followed Alan. As a result, they came to the bedroom behind the living room. "Is there a secret room here?" Poplar Fruit looked at Alan touching the bookshelf and asked doubtfully, "Could there really be a secret room?" Poplar Fruit thought of a scene in a movie. Monopoly pulled out a book from the bookshelf, and then the bookshelf moved in two, revealing a door to the secret room. It turned out that Poplar Fruit thought too much. Why would a person like Alan, who was only obsessed with games, go through so much trouble to make himself a useless secret room? He tiptoed for a while, and finally took down an iron box on the top of the bookshelf. There was nothing strange about the box. It was just an ordinary biscuit box. However, after Alan opened the lid, a dark pistol revealed its charming figure. Glock. As a shooting game enthusiast, Poplar Fruit was no stranger to this gun. It was a military pistol of a NATO member state, and in the United States, almost 50% of the police were equipped with this pistol. "That's right." Alan smiled coldly and said, "This is a Glock. Today, I will use it to get rid of this damn home invader." Suddenly, Alan seemed to have integrated himself into his fantasy game scene, but he did not know where his confidence came from. He held the gun and was ready to walk out. "Leon." Alan turned around and looked at Poplar Fruit, who was about to speak, and said, "You and your daughter are hiding here. If I don't ask you to open the door, don't open it." Alan is about to go out and show off his skills. His eyes were filled with the fanaticism of a Western cowboy. A new month, a new week, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 238. Alan closed the door and walked out without saying anything. Poplar Fruit couldn't be at ease. Alan was just an ordinary person who wasn't as thin as Jean Nong. There were professional killers outside with large caliber weapons. Could he go out and kill them? Poplar Fruit didn't think so. He looked around the bedroom downstairs. There was only an empty bed and a desk. There wasn't even a window to climb out of. It was no different from a storage room. Poplar Fruit gritted his teeth and hid his daughter at the foot of the bed. He steeled his heart, turned around, pushed open the door and walked out. When he walked out, he even closed the door. As soon as he walked out, he saw Alan leaning against the support pillar of the stairs, waving his pistol and shooting at the door. The gunshots kept ringing out. But Poplar Fruit took a closer look and saw that Alan had shot all the bullets askew. The bullets hit the sofa cushions, shattered the light bulb on the top, and collapsed the shoe cabinet at the door, but the door was still standing. There wasn't even a new hole. He turned to look at Alan. His eyes were closed, and his unrestrained shouts were even louder than the sound of the pistol. No wonder he couldn't hit him. In this state, it would be a miracle to hit him. At this time, Poplar Fruit caught a glimpse of the door that had been kicked open. A black gun barrel reached in. Poplar Fruit was shocked. He dragged Alan, who was completely out of control, to the ground. At this time, 2 large holes burst out of the wall behind them. Too powerful. Alan shouted on the ground in panic. He's unstoppable. We're dead. Poplar Fruit didn't have time to care about him. He felt a sense of crisis that made his temples jump. He immediately pulled Alan and rolled on the ground. Rows of bullets shot at the place where they had just been lying. At this time, the other party had no bullets, but Poplar Fruit could hear the sound of the person reloading the magazine was very consistent. He might not be as good as Xiong 3, but he had no chance to take him down empty-handed. Run! Alan desperately pulled Poplar Fruit along the stairs to hide on the 2nd floor. He rolled and crawled, pulling Poplar Fruit to hide in the corner. He gestured with his hands in front of his chest and prayed to God. God, please keep me alive until the police arrive. At this moment, Poplar Fruit, who had yet to catch his breath, suddenly remembered. Our daughter is still downstairs. God, how did he become a father? He left his daughter in a dangerous place. Alan pulled out the magazine, looked at it, and said in a low voice with a sad face, I just fired too many shots, and now I have a bullet. Give it to me. Poplar Fruit grabbed the pistol and rushed downstairs. Ellen quickly pulled him back and shouted, What are you doing? Going down is suicide. Poplar Fruit turned around and grabbed Ellen's collar. He stared at him fiercely with bloodshot eyes and roared, My daughter is still down there. At this moment, his red-eyed aura was like a ferocious beast that wanted to devour everyone in front of him. Ellen was trembling in fear, but Poplar Fruit did not push him away. Instead, he suddenly pulled him to the side. It turned out that their voices were heard by the killer. He raised his hand and fired continuously into the corridor. Poplar Fruit and the others almost died in the internal strife. Wah wah. After the gunshots, Kiki's cries came from the bedroom downstairs. Even though there was a door between them, her cries were so obvious in the dead silence that everyone held their breaths. Poplar Fruit listened with worry, but the killer obviously heard it too. Don't panic. Don't panic. Take a deep breath. Yonghua leaned against the pillar at the corner of the stairs and forced herself to calm down. Her heart was beating wildly and her mind was in a mess. There was only one bullet. Only one chance. Poplar Fruit forced himself to forget the heavy pressure. His internal strength followed his thoughts, and he suddenly entered that mysterious state. The world seemed to be very quiet. It was so quiet that even a needle dropping on the ground could be heard. Yes, Poplar Fruit could hear the killer's heavy breathing through the veil. He could even see the killer's every move in his mind. This state could not be explained by science. And Poplar Fruit did not care whether it was F*King scientific or not. He stared at the killer closely. He saw that the killer's muzzle was pointing upstairs, but he stopped moving and turned to look at the bedroom downstairs. The killer looked upstairs again, and took 2 steps back. His footsteps were almost inaudible. Then he turned around and walked towards the bedroom. The moment he turned around, Poplar Fruit seemed to have heard the signal of the starting gun. He flashed out from the corner of the stairs. In the blink of an eye, the moment Yongguo flashed out, the assassin also felt it, but when he turned his gun back, it was already too late. Poplar Fruit's reaction speed was faster than the king of the special forces. He pulled the trigger first. His hand was very steady, steadier than ever. Those few microseconds seemed to be very long. Poplar Fruit could feel the sparks of the bullet when it left the chamber. He could also feel that at the other end of the bullet, the killer's dilated pupils were exposed. It was the first time he fired without earmuffs. The gunshot exploded in his ears and was almost deafening. However, Poplar Fruit was not affected. He was still in that mysterious state. Although he had already seen it, he still rushed down to confirm that the killer who had fallen to the ground was indeed dead. He was indeed dead. There was a scorched hole in the forehead of the hood, and the blue eyes had lost the light of life. Killed another person. This sentence flashed through his mind. Poplar Fruit suddenly slumped to the ground. His whole body was weak, and the hand holding the gun was sweaty. The world seemed to have become so unreal. It was both far and near. His ears seemed to have only just started to show the aftereffects of the gunshot. The whole world seemed to be left with only the noise of radio waves. It was not until Kiki's helpless and fearful cries rang out again that Poplar Fruit gradually came back to his senses. Yes, my daughter is still in the room. Leon! Leon! At this time Alan, who was cowering in the corner, cried out in fear. He did not dare to move now, and he did not know what was going on below. He could only call out to Poplar Fruit with a trembling voice and wait for his response. He has been taken care of. Poplar Fruit's slightly tired voice was undoubtedly the sound of nature in Alan's ears. Just now, Poplar Fruit did not respond for a long time. He thought that Poplar Fruit was dead, and those damn tears were about to flow out. Alan struggled and stood up with the help of the wall. He looked at Poplar Fruit, who had also just gotten up from the ground, and the black figure on the ground that was half covered by Poplar Fruit's body. The two who had survived the disaster looked at each other in a daze. They did not know why, but they actually laughed. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to smash the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 239. The police were always the last to arrive. This unchanging truth was not only applicable to China, but also to America. Poplar Fruit and the rest had just stood up when the alarm rang outside. Many police cars screeched and screeched as they braked. Immediately, a team of armed policemen with shields kicked open the door and rushed in. Put down the gun. I repeat, put down the gun. The leading policeman shouted nervously. Poplar Fruit quickly threw the gun in his hand to the ground. Although there was not a single bullet in the gun, the police did not know that. He did not want to be killed by the police. Poplar Fruit raised both his hands to show his innocence. However, two policemen rushed up and pinned Poplar Fruit to the ground. With these two men's clumsy movements, Yongguo was confident that he had 100 ways to beat them to the ground. But now that he was being pointed at by a gun, he could only obediently be pressed down with his arms behind his back. Hey! Alan hurriedly ran down and shouted. You've got the wrong person. You've got the wrong person. This is my friend. The one on the ground is the one who wants to kill me. At this moment, Alan lowered his head and saw the assassin in black on the ground. The assassin's eyes were still open in disbelief. The small hole on his forehead was gurgling, and the ground was covered in red and white. Seeing this scene, Alan, whose heart was still as pure as a little white flower, could not help but retch while leaning against the wall. Among the policemen who rushed in, one of them knew Alan. After hearing his explanation, he quickly asked his partner to let go of Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit did not have the time to argue with them about why they pinned him down without any reason. He rushed back to the bedroom downstairs and hugged Kiki, who was already crying. Kiki was frightened by the terrifying gunshots and screams. Moreover, her father was not by her side just now. Now that she was being hugged by her father, she cried even harder. Poplar Fruit hugged his daughter tightly and kissed her forehead. He said regretfully, "It's all Dad's fault. It's all Dad's fault. Dad shouldn't have left you behind, shouldn't have left you in a dangerous place. Dad promises that I will never leave Kiki again." Okay. Back in the living room, Poplar Fruit covered Kiki's eyes with his hand, afraid that she would see something terrifying. At this moment, Alan, who was fully revived, was jumping up and down to the police station's chief, Frank, to describe the dangerous situation just now. You don't know how powerful this assassin is. The gun flew past my ear. If it wasn't for my luck, if it wasn't for my friend Leon, I would have died. Look at these bullet marks, my game console. Alan exaggerated, waved his hands as he said, "Is this a normal prank? I already said that it was a death threat letter. He really wanted to take my life." Poplar Fruit could see the helpless look on Chief Frank's face under Alan's saliva. However, he was the one at fault, so he didn't dare to wipe it off. Although the officialdom in the United States was not as decadent as in China, a superstar company like Blizzard was considered a signboard in a small city like Erewhon. If one of its bosses was assassinated because he did not protect them well, then Director Frank would have to take the blame and resign the next day without needing any orders from the higher-ups. "I guess there might be accomplices around here," Alan said seriously. "You have to search carefully." Chief Frank comforted. "Don't worry, we will increase the police force to search. However, according to the current situation, we have already found the sniper rifle that he left on top of a building." "What do you mean?" Alan asked, puzzled. "This basically proves that he doesn't have any other gang. He's alone," Chief Frank said. Poplar Fruit hugged his daughter and nodded slightly. He also agreed with Chief Frank's point of view. If the black-clothed assassin had an accomplice, he definitely wouldn't have let go of Poplar Fruit when he was at his weakest. The police investigated for a while and found that they couldn't find any information from the black-clothed assassin. Then they linked it to Alan's police report about the death threat letter not long ago. The police temporarily thought that this was a follow-up to the death threat letter. Unknowingly, Poplar Fruit had already cleared himself of suspicion in this case. Of course, Poplar Fruit didn't think that this attack was actually related to him. Taking a statement was still necessary. Anyway, the house was almost destroyed, and he felt that it wasn't safe to stay at home. Hence, Alan promised Chief Frank to go back to the police station to take a statement. Poplar Fruit didn't care. He just wanted to find a safe place to sit down, so he also took his bag and went to the police station with Alan. When they arrived at the police station, Poplar Fruit first made a bottle of milk and gave it to Kiki to calm her nerves. Kiki was sleepy and fell asleep after drinking half the bottle. Poplar Fruit asked a female police officer who was full of maternal love to take care of him for a while. Then he followed a detective to the quiet room next door to take a statement. Because of Alan's relationship with Poplar Fruit, the detective was very amiable when he was taking a statement with him. "Please show me your driver's license or give me your social security number." Poplar Fruit was stunned. He smiled and said, Oh, you misunderstood. I'm not an American. I'm from China. This is my passport." He took out his passport from his bag and handed it over. "It's hard to imagine that you're not an American. Your English is no different from ours." The detective looked at Poplar Fruit's passport and sighed. "That's because I'm a professional translator." Poplar Fruit shrugged and smiled. "Language is the tool that I rely on for a living." "You're not a professional soldier? Or a retired soldier?" the detective asked in shock. His eyes were wide open. "No," Poplar Fruit asked in confusion. "Why do you think so?" "I've never been a soldier, nor have I been in a profession like a soldier or a police officer." "Unbelievable. Your marksmanship is so good. One shot to the head. If you're not a professional soldier, that's too amazing." The detective shook his head. "This guy's marksmanship is so good. He must have practiced it while playing games." Alan, who had just finished his call, opened the door and heard the detective's words. He said resentfully, "It's the same when he's playing games. Every shot to the head. He doesn't give anyone a chance." "Who said that I practiced it while playing games?" Poplar Fruit said in dissatisfaction. "I've been to the shooting range in China. It's just that I'm not like you, who practiced until the bullets hit the ceiling. I'm just nervous." "Nervous, do you understand?" Alan said in embarrassment. "Why don't we go to the shooting range and have a fair duel?" The detective waited for the two of them to compare with each other for a while before he interrupted and pulled Lou back. "So, What you're saying is that you're a Chinese and a translator? Author's note. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to throw at the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 240. You're Chinese and you're a translator. So, are you here in the US for a vacation? The inspector asked as he took notes with his pen. No, I'm here for business. Poplar Fruit shook his head. Business? The inspector picked up Poplar Fruit's passport again and realized it was a business visa. Yes, I'm here with a business team from a publishing company to discuss the import of a book. Poplar Fruit rummaged through his bag and found some documents that could prove his identity and showed them to the inspector. The inspector flipped through the documents and pointed at the location. Aren't you negotiating in the Big Apple? Why are you here in Irvine? That's because I live in Irvine. He purposely came to visit me, Alan interrupted. Poplar Fruit rolled his eyes and said, No, it's because our negotiation is not over yet. The other party needs to conduct a business investigation before making a decision. He's coming to California for a lecture tour according to his itinerary. That's why we followed him here. As for Irvine, I suddenly remembered Alan lives here, so I came to visit him. Purposely and on the way. What a difference. That's so hurtful. Alan sighed. To think that I invited you so many times, but you only came here because it's on the way. Isn't it on the way? I even saved your life along the way. Youngwa curled her lips and said. The inspector asked Poplar Fruit a few more questions before letting the two of them out. The police station was on duty 24 hours a day. Alan felt uneasy going to a hotel, so he borrowed a quiet office from Frank to rest. Her daughter was lying on the side. Youngwa covered her with a small quilt that she brought with her from her school bag, while he ate takeout with Alan. That's right. After all that, they still ordered pizza. The pizza in America had a lot more fillings compared to Poplar Fruit in China. Meat, tomatoes, and other fillings were everywhere in one bite. Of course, the pizza in the US was not as good as the pizza in China. The pizza in the US tasted bland and was not as delicious as the pizza in China. He didn't know if he was hungry, but Poplar Fruit ate faster, while Alan ate slowly as if he was tasting something delicious. Poplar Fruit washed her hands and began to tidy up the school bag that was messed up when she flipped through the quilt. What is this? Alan's sharp eyes saw that the Poplar Fruit had fallen out of a transparent box containing something that looked like a postcard. On it, there seemed to be a picture from the Warcraft game. Poplar Fruit slapped away Alan's greasy claws in disdain and said, Don't touch it. You haven't washed your hands yet. Alan, on the other hand, was even more interested. He finished the remaining small piece of pizza, ran to wash his hands, and then came over excitedly. What is it? Poplar Fruit handed him a tissue to let him wipe his hands, then carefully opened the box and took out the cards to show him. Poplar Fruit looked at Alan, quickly looking at the cards one by one, and said with some heartache, Hey, be careful. Don't break it. In fact, this set of cards was not worth much, but thinking that it was a pair with the set beside Fong Beibei, Poplar Fruit cherished it very much. Looking at the way he carried it with him, one could guess 1, 2, 3, 3. Where did this come from? Alan asked doubtfully. I have never seen these things before. Poplar Fruit said with a little pride. This is a card game based on the Warcraft background. A game I made with a friend. Alan looked at his peach blossom face and said with a smile. Girlfriend? Poplar Fruit said with a red face. A female friend. Alan did not continue to ask. He was not a gossipy person, and games were all he cared about. He pulled Poplar Fruit's clothes and let Poplar Fruit explain to him how to play. His voice was a little loud, and Poplar Fruit glared at him, afraid that he would disturb his sleeping daughter, who was still trembling slightly. Staying in the police station was quite boring, and there was no computer or game console to pass the time. Poplar Fruit explained the card game to Alan. First, you have to choose 30 cards from this set as your own card set. Poplar Fruit whispered. When Poplar Fruit was explaining, Alan's eyes were wide open, and he kept exclaiming in a low voice, Unbelievable! Unbelievable! Alan was not an inhuman with boundless energy like Poplar Fruit. After a day of torment and struggling on the edge of life and death, He was already a little sleepy, and his eyes were bloodshot. However, listening to a brand new game, Alan radiated with new vitality. Looking at his energetic appearance, it was hard to imagine that he had not slept for more than 10 or 20 hours. Poplar Fruit did not know, and continued to chat with him. In the end, as they chatted, Alan suddenly fell asleep on the table without warning, and it gave Poplar Fruit a fright. Alan did not sleep for long, and even Poplar Fruit had just woken up from his 3 hours of sleep. After Alan woke up, he rubbed his face with his hands to force himself to be more alert. He was thinking about this game even in his dreams. Seeing Poplar Fruit sitting next to him and smiling, Alan jumped up and pulled Poplar Fruit's clothes and whispered, "Quick, let's play your game." Poplar Fruit waved his hand and said, "I can't play. This card needs 2 sets to play, and I only have 1 set. The other one is still in China." "Are both of them the same?" Alan asked. "They are exactly the same," Poplar Fruit said. "That's easy." After hearing Poplar Fruit's answer, Alan jumped up and ran to the police on duty. He paid for the right to use the police station's printer to print crime scene photos. He printed all the cards in Poplar Fruit's hands. Of course, the printer was a large-size photo, which was bigger than A4 paper. Therefore, he looked particularly funny holding the new cards. Poplar Fruit's own cards were the same size as a movie star, and it was already quite big, but Alan's was even bigger. However, Alan, who was in high spirits, could not care less. He pulled Poplar Fruit to play. It was his first time playing the game, and Alan was not completely familiar with it. Most of the time, he played while asking Poplar Fruit. In the end, he kept losing, but he was never tired of losing. Of course, Poplar Fruit was willing to continue playing. It was rare to find an opponent who could win. In the past, when he played with Fong Beibei, he almost always lost. Moreover, this opponent seemed to have a masochistic tendency. He could not be happier. At this time, Alan was not playing the game to win, but to study a new game. His vision was much more experienced. After playing a few rounds, he pointed out many loopholes in the game and many places that affected the balance. Poplar Fruit nodded secretly and silently noted it down. He did not even think about these problems. Go back and tell Fong Beibei that she will definitely solve it. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to smash the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 241. They played until dawn, and the police officers who passed by on their way to work all looked at them strangely. They didn't go home, didn't stay in a hotel, but squatted in the police station to play cards. They were probably the only 2 people in the world who played cards bigger than A4 paper. The impact was not good. Director Frank couldn't help but knock on the door and come in. He wanted to persuade them to leave. Director Frank told them that there was a large group of reporters outside, who wanted to report about the attack on Blizzard's boss. He could arrange for a police officer to secretly send them away in a police car. "Let's go." Poplar Fruit put away the card and smiled at Alan. "I think except for this, your home should be safe now." "Wait." Alan suddenly raised his hand and said to Director Frank, "Give me a little time." Director Frank nodded, turned around, and closed the door before leaving. Alan rushed up and took Poplar Fruit's hand. He said to Poplar Fruit excitedly, "Leon, we are good friends, right?" Poplar Fruit nodded doubtfully and said, "Yes, we are brothers who have gone through trials and tribulations together." He didn't think of how to translate the word brother with the same English word, so he just translated it casually. Alan looked at Poplar Fruit affectionately and said, "Leon, since we are brothers, you must sell this game to me. Sell it to Blizzard." "Oh my God, this is an epic-making great idea." Poplar Fruit was stunned. He and Fong Beibei studied the game just to pass the time. They never thought of selling it for money, but Alan proposed to sell the game to Blizzard. Poplar Fruit couldn't believe his ears for a while. Could it be that the card game he casually designed was so good that it could enter Blizzard's eyes? Poplar Fruit understood that the card game was actually very simple. Even the pictures were downloaded from Chengdu Online, and there were so many loopholes. He asked with an incredible expression, "You want to buy my game?" "Yes," Alan said. "This card game is wonderful. I believe that after the company's in-depth development, It will definitely be popular. Sell it to me? I'll definitely get you the best price. It's not about money. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said awkwardly, my friend and I researched this game together. If you want to sell it, you have to get her permission. If Fong Beibei did not agree, no matter what Alan said, Poplar Fruit would not agree. This was because this game was the crystallization of his and Fong Beibei's wisdom. Ahem, although it sounded weird, that was what he meant. The Poplar Fruit was very precious to him. Hurry up and call her and ask her. When it came to games, Alan became impatient. He couldn't wait for Poplar Fruit to ask. Please, please, please. Poplar Fruit counted with his fingers. It should be around 10 p.m. Beijing time. Fong Beibei should not be asleep yet, right? Although girls went to bed early, didn't they all go to bed late in the university? Poplar Fruit picked up his phone and called Fong Beibei. At first, Fong Beibei did not pick up and rejected the call. Poplar Fruit called again. When she picked up, Poplar Fruit quickly told her that it was him. Oh, it's you. Fong Beibei laughed happily. Aren't you in the US? Why are you calling me? I saw an unknown number and thought it was a harassment call. I'm calling you from the US. Haha. You haven't slept yet, right? Poplar Fruit laughed. He could hear Fong Beibei's roommates cheering over the phone. Yo, Beibei, who is this? Are you in the US? I'm about to sleep. Wait for me. I'll talk to you when I'm out of the corridor. Fong Beibei climbed down from her bed with her phone and made funny faces at her roommates. She did not answer them and kept them in suspense. All right. I'm out. Fong Beibei stood in the corridor and asked as she paced back and forth. Uncle, why did you call me when you're in America? It's very expensive to make an overseas call. It's fine. It's just a few dozen RMB. Poplar Fruit laughed. Then, how's your matter going? When are you coming back? Fong Beibei asked. Not bad. I'm still waiting for the final confirmation. I don't know when I will be back. I think it will take a few more days. Yanguo laughed. He turned his head and saw Aaron looking at him from the side. He couldn't understand Chinese, so he could only stare. However, he had a wretched look on his face as he eavesdropped. Yanguo used his right hand to push his head away. Alan was pushed away, but he was still shouting. How is it? Do you agree? Hey, why is there a foreign devil's voice beside you? Fong Beibei asked doubtfully. Oh, it's like this. I have a friend who is one of the founders of Blizzard. His name is Adam. Poplar Fruit laughed. When he heard Poplar Fruit mention his name, Alan quickly shut his mouth. That magical beast was developed by his family. Poplar Fruit said. I accidentally let him see the card that I designed with you. He thought it was good and wanted to buy it. He kept pestering me, so I called to ask for your opinion. Before Fong Beibei could respond, Poplar Fruit quickly added. If you don't want to sell it, just tell me. It's okay. I was forced to ask. Fong Beibei laughed and said. If you think it's okay, then sell it. I don't have any objections. Our efforts can be appreciated by such a big company like Blizzard. It's a great achievement. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said, I don't have any objections if you agree. I was worried that you would say that the game was designed by the two of us, and that you don't want to sell it. It's okay. Fong Beibei laughed. It's great that more people can see it. But, Fong Beibei's tone suddenly became very serious. She said, you can't sell or lose the cards I gave you. It's the only one in the world. If you lose it, I won't talk to you anymore. I promise I won't lose it. Poplar Fruit suddenly straightened his chest and said, I have a good collection. Hee hee, I'm just teasing you. Fong Beibei laughed and said, That's it? I'm going to sleep. Wait, how much do you think we should sell it for? Poplar Fruit asked anxiously. You see, you decide. Fong Beibei said. Okay, we'll split it 50-50. Poplar Fruit said seriously. He always felt uncomfortable talking to Fong Beibei about money, but Poplar Fruit still wanted to make it clear. Didn't the people in his hometown always say, even brothers have to settle accounts clearly? Okay, uncle, you're so long-winded. Fong Beibei said, 50-50? The money we'll get from selling it won't even be as much as the phone bill. I'm going to sleep. Bye-bye. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 242. How is it? As soon as Poplar Fruit put down the phone, Alan couldn't wait to greet him and ask. Poplar Fruit deliberately put on a heavy expression, which made Alan's heart go up and down. He wanted to ask again with a sad face. At this time, Poplar Fruit put on a smile and said, "We've decided to sell." Alan was stunned for a moment, then jumped up ecstatically and hugged Poplar Fruit tightly. He cheered loudly, "Great, great. This is bad." Poplar Fruit didn't have time to cover Alan's mouth. He turned to look in the direction of his daughter's sleep. Sure enough, his daughter was woken up by Alan's loud voice. He didn't know if it was because yesterday's fright still left a shadow in her heart, but after being woken up by the shouting, Kiki burst into tears. Poplar Fruit quickly pushed the octopus away, ran over, and picked up his daughter. As he coaxed her, he looked at Alan reproachfully. Alan was so excited that he couldn't find the north. He didn't notice Poplar Fruit's eyes. He took out his phone and shouted, "I'll ask you the price right away. Wait. I'll get you the best price." Chief Frank pushed the door open and came in. Alan waved his phone and gestured to Chief Frank. "Wait a little longer, wait a little longer." Poplar Fruit smiled helplessly at Chief Frank, then went to the bathroom of the police station to get some water for his daughter to wipe her face. After being chilled by the cold water, Kiki gradually woke up. She stopped crying and just hugged her father's neck tightly. After Kiki wiped her face, her hair was a little wet and curled up, tightly sticking to her cheeks and forehead. She looked very cute. Poplar Fruit kissed her little face, loving her very much. Back in the quiet room, Alan was still on the phone. He sometimes muttered, sometimes roared, sometimes stood against the back of the chair, sometimes jumped on the chair with shoes on, waving his arms as if he was giving a speech. Poplar Fruit shook his head, took out milk powder and a bottle from his bag, and went out again. He found a female police officer, and asked her to help him get some hot water to make milk powder for his daughter. A faint fragrance floated out. Poplar Fruit's stomach suddenly growled. He only ate pizza yesterday, and today he was hungry too. Ha! Several police officers sitting next to Poplar Fruit laughed. They didn't have any malicious intentions. One of them was very friendly and handed the breakfast he brought over to Poplar Fruit, and asked him if he wanted to eat it. Poplar Fruit ate one of his chicken pieces and gave it back to him and laughed. "I call. There is still one who hasn't eaten breakfast. My friend, you were so cool yesterday." A black police officer came up and lightly punched Poplar Fruit's arm. He laughed and said, "I heard about it. One shot to the head, so cool." Poplar Fruit shrugged and joked with them for a while. When the takeout arrived, he took the takeout and walked back with Kiki in his arms. Alan's phone call lasted for more than half an hour. After he put down the phone, he excitedly said to Poplar Fruit, "Leon, I finally talked to the board. They are willing to pay $6 million for your game." Poplar Fruit was about to sit down, but when he heard this, he stopped. He looked at Alan in a daze and couldn't believe his ears. $6 million? And it was in me gold? When Alan saw that Poplar Fruit didn't reply, he became anxious. He pulled Poplar Fruit's clothes and said, "Leon, are you still not satisfied? This is really the highest price I can get." It was indeed the highest price. Seeing that Poplar Fruit had saved his life and that the game was really good, Alan tried his best to persuade the other board members. He spent a lot of effort to get Poplar Fruit this price. "You have to know that the card game that you designed is just a prototype. After we take it over, we will have to invest a lot of money and go through a lot of post-development before we can launch it into the market. $6 million is already a very rare high price." Alan said anxiously, "No, Alan." Poplar Fruit quickly held Alan, who was about to jump up and down, and said, "I don't think it's too low. I think it's too high. $6 million. I won't be able to earn that much money even if I work as a translator for my whole life." Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said, "This number just scared me." "So you're saying that you agree?" Alan asked happily. "Alan," Poplar Fruit said seriously, "I know that it's not easy for you to get this price. You paid so much just to repay me for saving your life. But at that time, I killed him to save my daughter, and also to save myself. So don't bring trouble to yourself because of me. No. Alan shook his head like a rattledrum and said, I'm not just doing it to repay you. I'm doing it because this game is worth my effort. You know my character. If it's not a good game, I'll never let the company import it. Even if you kill me, I won't do it. As for the price, I admit that if it were someone else, I definitely wouldn't offer such a high price. I might even ask the company's professional negotiation team to lower the price. However, you have to understand that I'm only helping you to get the benefits that you deserve. Your game is really worth that much money. Alan said to Poplar Fruit seriously. Poplar Fruit was still a little hesitant. He said, Isn't this too high? Haha, don't worry. Alan stretched out his hand and patted Poplar Fruit's shoulder hard. He said, My vision is not wrong. This game is worth investing a lot of money in, and in the future, it will double for us. Poplar Fruit felt like he was dreaming when he got such a price. However, when he pinched his thigh, it still hurt. He wanted to call Fong Beibei to discuss it again, but when he looked at the time, it was already late at night in China. It was definitely not appropriate to call back, and Fong Beibei had said that he would make the decision himself. So he had to make the decision himself. In fact, there was nothing to do. In the face of such a high price, Poplar Fruit couldn't think of any reason to refuse. He nodded to Alan and said, Well, $6 million sold to Blizzard. Alan cheered happily. Poplar Fruit quickly pulled him back and said, Wait a minute. Alan asked doubtfully, Do you have any other conditions? Poplar Fruit nodded and said, Yes, I can sell you the card game, but I can't give you this set of cards. This is very important to me. He shook the set of cards that Fong Beibei had given him at Alan. Alan laughed and said, Look at how nervous you are. Don't worry, I don't want your cards. I just want your idea. By the way, Alan suddenly remembered and asked, What's the name of this game? Poplar Fruit pondered for a moment, then looked up and said with a smile, Heroes_of_Warcraft. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to smash the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 243. After hurriedly eating breakfast, Alan couldn't wait to drag Poplar Fruit into the police car, and went straight to Blizzard. After entering the gate, many people saw Alan and exchanged a few pleasantries with him, asking if he was well. This morning, the news of Alan's attack spread. If he wasn't okay, someone would have run to see him with flowers. Blizzard was very low-key, and no reporters could even enter the company. Poplar Fruit was the first time he saw Blizzard, even on the internet. Compared with Apple, Blizzard's overall decoration was not so high-tech, but it was not bad. What impressed Poplar Fruit the most was Blizzard's pantry and lounge. There would be 1 or 2 such places on each floor. Warm decorations and rich snacks and drinks were not what impressed Poplar Fruit. What Poplar Fruit found amazing was that Blizzard's employees were also discussing game design or programming in low voices in the pantry and lounge. Everyone was in high spirits, as if they had been injected with chicken blood. This made Poplar Fruit doubt his own cognition. Weren't programmers very bitter? This reminded Poplar Fruit of a report he had seen before, saying that when Blizzard recruited employees, the first thing they didn't want was those who didn't love games. Perhaps it was the obsession with games that formed such a strong working atmosphere in the company. In the report, many senior managers expressed such feelings. In addition to family, the happiest thing for me is to develop games for the company. Similarly, in the eyes of Blizzard's employees, games were not only a job, but also a way of life. Poplar Fruit felt that this selfless spirit of work was reflected in every employee of Blizzard. Blizzard's people almost reached a paranoia for their career. When he mentioned this discovery to Alan, Alan proudly said to Poplar Fruit, Yes, this is the soul of Blizzard. Leon, I want to introduce you to someone. Alan smiled and said to Poplar Fruit when he saw a person coming from afar. Mike. Mike Morhaime, my best brother, and the current CEO of Blizzard. Thank God. As soon as Mike came up, he gave Alan a bear hug and said, Fortunately, you're fine. I was shocked when I heard about this. Why didn't you inform me yesterday? Poplar Fruit carefully looked at the leader of Blizzard. He was a very handsome American. Even if he was already a middle-aged uncle, Poplar Fruit did not doubt that this face could make women scream. "I'm fine, aren't I?" Alan laughed. "Don't make a fuss. By the way, this is the Leon I told you about on the phone. He saved my life yesterday. Mr. Leon, thank you very much too." Mike shook Poplar Fruit's hand and said, "Welcome to Blizzard. I heard from Alan that you've brought us a great game." These two guys are really a Blizzard gay duo. Poplar Fruit cursed silently. It was as if the two of them were made from the same mold. After exchanging a few words, the conversation immediately shifted to the game. "Nice to meet you too. Can I call you Mike?" After Poplar Fruit got permission, he smiled and said, "I don't dare to say that it's great. This is just a game that my friends and I came up with to pass the time." Although he knew that there was no need to be modest in front of foreigners, modesty was a good character buried in the bones of Chinese people. Mike did not care whether he was modest or not. He smiled and said, "No problem, we are waiting for your demonstration." Let me say it, Alan said excitedly. "I already know what this game is like. Let me introduce it to everyone. Leon, is that okay? You can guide me from the side. If there is anything missing, you can add it." He was holding his daughter, so it was inconvenient for him to do the demonstration. Alan volunteered, and Poplar Fruit could not ask for more. He nodded gently. When they entered the conference room, several executives were already sitting there. They were also having a network meeting with the foreign directors through video connection. Alan explained to them that because it was a last-minute idea, the executives also acquiesced to Poplar Fruit bringing his daughter in for the meeting. Alan used the projector to play the cards that he photocopied last night on the screen, and then explained with joy. Poplar Fruit listened from the side, and could not help but nod secretly. After all, Alan was a professional. His explanation was clear and to the point. He was much better than Poplar Fruit himself. "Did you say anything?" Alan turned his head and asked Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit smiled and shook his head, saying, "No, you said everything." Not only did he say everything, but he also filled in some of the loopholes he found yesterday and said it as Poplar Fruit. "That's it. What do you think?" Alan put down the pen in his hand and said, "It's really good." A vice president named Pardo stood up and clapped. The others also applauded. Who was Pardo? In 2006, he was selected as one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine. And this reputation came from the epic-making World of Warcraft that he, as the chief designer, launched and was sought after by countless people all over the world. He and Ali were both extremely obsessed with games, and his judgment and analysis of games were praised by Blizzard as holy scriptures. This game, although there are still many areas to be improved, it is indeed a fascinating game. I believe many people will like it. Pardo said excitedly. And it is based on the background of World of Warcraft. If it is released, there will be many fans of World of Warcraft screaming. Mike calmed down a lot. He carefully looked at the cards that Alan put on the table, raised his head and said to the directors and executives of Blizzard present, "Gentlemen, I don't know if you have noticed, but this game is also suitable to be played on mobile." Poplar Fruit said in his heart, "Of course. Isn't Legend of the Three Kingdoms very popular on mobile and tablet?" He didn't know how much Mike's words meant to the people of Blizzard. Blizzard's games were mainly focused on the PC. In the mobile game market, although many games had tried to be transplanted, they didn't achieve good results. After all, mobile games and PC games were two different concepts, and the way to operate was also different. Compared to the PC market, Blizzard's development in the mobile market was disappointing. However, the mobile game market was developing rapidly, and it was already a big cake that even Blizzard couldn't ignore. If they couldn't achieve results, they would be abandoned by the times. Pardo was a little excited, and even a little carried away. He said, "That's right. We must buy this game. The 6 million miles Gene spent is too worth it. I think we can accept another 2 million. When he said this, the whole room was silent. This executive who was obsessed with design and technology seemed to have forgotten that this game hadn't been officially sold yet, and the owner himself, Poplar Fruit, was sitting in front of him. Xiaohan's birthday is tomorrow, shamelessly asking for blessings, haha oh intersection underscore intersection. Oh. Chapter 244. All the directors and executives looked at Pardo. He had also realized his mistake. His chubby face revealed an awkward expression as he stood there, feeling extremely uncomfortable. Mike's hand that was holding the card also stopped. His other hand that was supporting his cheek rubbed his temples. On one hand, he was speechless at Pardo's recklessness. On the other hand, he had a headache thinking about countermeasures. Alan sat next to him and wanted to say something. He wanted to fight for more benefits for Poplar Fruit, but the company didn't belong to him alone. If he used Mike's big shot as a bargaining chip to force the company, then wouldn't everyone be able to continue to have fun in the future? Poplar Fruit was the first to speak. As soon as he spoke, everyone's eyes were focused on him. Kiki was so scared that she hid her head in her father's arms. Poplar Fruit laughed dryly and said, "I think that the price of 6 million that Alan mentioned before is very reasonable. There is no need to increase it further. Moreover, I have already agreed to Alan's offer." His words were completely out of everyone's expectations. When Poplar Fruit spoke just now, the directors thought that Poplar Fruit was going to use Pardo's words as a bargaining chip to force Blizzard to increase their offer. If that was really the case, Mike knew that he would probably still agree, because this game was indeed worth their investment. However, there was someone who actually didn't want the opportunity to get more money. Poplar Fruit's words had overturned their understanding. In a capitalist society, business was business. How could there be someone who was emotionally swayed and gave up $2 million just like that? All the Blizzard executives and directors had different expressions on their faces, especially Pardo. His shock was mixed with a look of gratitude. There was nothing much to say. Since the parties involved didn't want to increase the price, Blizzard wasn't stupid enough to ask why. They let the legal department draft a contract and let Poplar Fruit sign it. Poplar Fruit hesitated for a moment and let them add Fong Beibei's name. There are some loopholes here. Don't take it too seriously. After signing, Mike held Poplar Fruit's hand and said solemnly, "Leon, your creativity is very important to our company, and your sincerity and kindness are very precious to us. In the future, you will always be a good friend of Blizzard, and you will always be a good friend of mine. You will be a good friend of Mohami's. I can also solemnly promise you that in the future, if Blizzard wants to buy your new game, we will give you the most sincere price. Even if Blizzard doesn't buy it, it may be because of the different game concepts. We will provide you with publicity channels to help our friends grow." After listening to this long speech, Yonghua couldn't help but silently curse. Was it useful for Mike to make such a promise? He was a translator. In the future, he would be an excellent teacher. He would be a professional gamer. He would be to them, and Blizzard, on the other hand, they would help him? That was the wrong thing to say. Poplar Fruit borrowed a computer and sorted out all the game information for them on the spot. After all, the copy in Alan's hand was in Chinese, and Poplar Fruit translated it for them for free. In terms of games, Poplar Fruit couldn't be compared to them, but in terms of writing skills, no one in Blizzard could surpass Poplar Fruit. Poplar Fruit typed as he sorted out hundreds of pages of information. He finished it in less than an hour. The sound of the keyboard as he typed shocked Alan to say that he was a humanoid computer. As for Kiki, several blonde beauties from Blizzard's secretary department brought a lot of small toys to tease her. These small toys were all related to Blizzard, such as dolls and so on. Pardo, on the other hand, called someone to send over a children's car that his son played with. This car wasn't remote controlled. The child could sit inside and control the direction by turning the steering wheel. He could also press the 2 buttons on the car to control the forward and backward movement. It was a pity that Kiki lost interest after Pardo helped control the car for a while. She liked to ride in her father's car, and this toy car that only crawled a little faster than a tortoise was out of the question. After they were done, they were ready to leave. However, Alan suddenly remembered the conversation he had with Poplar Fruit in Beijing. He suddenly said mysteriously, "Leon, I want to show you a game." "What game?" Poplar Fruit held his daughter with one hand, and Alan pulled him forward with the other. This game is a countermeasure we came up with after Valve poached Frostfrog from Dota. Alan chuckled. This game used to be called Blizzard Dota, because we gathered the important characters from the company's 3 best games, World of Warcraft, Diablo, and StarCraft, into this game. There's such a game? Poplar Fruit asked curiously. Why haven't I heard of it before? This game was indeed rarely mentioned in the media. There was once a screenshot of the map, but it disappeared without a trace. Poplar Fruit, who was far away in China and didn't pay attention to the news of the gaming industry, obviously didn't know about it. Because we didn't announce it to the public, and it's a pity. Alan shrugged and said, because of the Dota trademark, we've changed our name to Blizzard All-Stars. What a lousy name. Poplar Fruit secretly complained in his heart. This game is basically complete, and we're preparing to release it together with StarCraft's Heart of the Swarm next year. Alan smiled. Yang Guo went to the office of the little-known game design team. Yang Guo was accompanied by one of the managers of the team. She started to play the game. How is it? Alan looked at Poplar Fruit excitedly. What do you mean, how is it? It's not bad. Do you want me to review it? Poplar Fruit didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Just tell me what you think. I think you have a good idea. Alan said. The supervisor also looked at Poplar Fruit with a smile. Poplar Fruit tried hard to recall the MOBA games he played in the past. He scratched his head and said, I think this game imitates Dota 2 deeply. Although there are big changes in the graphics, heroes, and skills, there aren't many differences in the gameplay. This doesn't highlight the game's uniqueness. I know you want to use Blizzard All-Stars as a gimmick to attract players from the other 3 games, but this won't last long. Who knows, they might even be attracted by Dota or League of Legends. After all, they've been in operation for a long time, and the gameplay is very interesting. Do you guys think we can add something new and more fun? Poplar Fruit looked into their eyes and said tentatively, for example, wild monsters. After killing them, will they drop revival runes, and players will be able to obtain a batch of wild monsters that can fight for them? Poplar Fruit's words attracted a lot of listeners. The programmers on the side all stopped what they were doing and looked at Poplar Fruit. What else? What else? Seeing Poplar Fruit stop to drink some water, the supervisor asked anxiously. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 245. Poplar Fruit talked about a few more details of the game, then looked around at the people around him. In the end, he saw a dark mass of hungry eyes. He swallowed his saliva and said, Also, can the pace of the game be faster? Many old players don't have much time to play games. You see, a game of Dota takes more than half an hour. If we can be faster, many people will like it. As for the name, Poplar Fruit said, I always feel that the term All-Star reminds people of the NBA All-Star game. It's just an entertainment game for everyone. It can't be serious. It would be better if we could change the name. At this point, Poplar Fruit stopped. He really didn't have anything to say. They had all emptied him. Hey, hurry up and say it. Why did you say it halfway? The supervisor said anxiously. You haven't said what the name is better. Do I have to say the name? Poplar Fruit rolled his eyes. I don't know how to come up with a name. Like my game. I came up with a name that wasn't very famous, Heroes of Warcraft. It was so frustrating. If you asked me to name it, I could only give it names like Heroes of Blizzard, Heroes of the Storm, Heroes of the Hurricane, and so on. Heroes of the Storm, Heroes of the Storm. That doesn't sound bad, the supervisor muttered. Blizzard was indeed an extreme weather control. He suddenly stood up, clapped his hands, and said, Everyone cheer up. Let's go for a meeting. I think our game needs to be modified. It needs a big change. With the supervisor's order, the surrounding programmers instantly ran away. In the blink of an eye, Poplar Fruit was only left with Alan, the guy who had nothing to do. Poplar Fruit looked at the messy ground with a dull gaze. He realized that he really didn't understand this group of people. A layman like him casually said a few words, and they made such a big fuss? Sigh. Alan shook his head and sighed. It looks like this game is going to skip tickets again. Poplar Fruit stood up and pulled Alan outside. Let's go. It's getting late. Actually, it had nothing to do with time. He just felt that he might have accidentally screwed over an entire team. Of the 36 stratagems, the best stratagem was to run. Before leaving, Alan gave Poplar Fruit a big box of Blizzard accessories, dolls, t-shirts, figurines, notebooks, and so on. Poplar Fruit quite liked it, so he called for a courier and asked them to send it back to Yangcheng. There were a lot of things, so it was not bad to give them away. In the afternoon, Poplar Fruit contacted Zheng Yujia. He didn't want to tell her about the attack because he didn't want her to worry. The investigation should be out in a few days. Poplar Fruit made an appointment with her to meet in Los Angeles tomorrow. Alan didn't want to go home, so the two of them went straight to the hotel and booked 2 rooms. However, his sister-in-law, who had a falling out with Alan, suddenly appeared in Florida with 2 kids. When she received the news, she immediately flew back on the fastest flight. When they met, the two of them hugged each other. Alan's wife was called Linda, and she was about the same age as him. It could be seen that the two of them were a pair of enemies. They hugged each other, crying and scolding each other, but that kind of attachment and reluctance could be seen by anyone. Even though they were at loggerheads, the two of them stuck together like glue, because they were separated by life and death. Of the 2 kids in Alan's family, one was around 7, while the other wasn't even 5. The younger one sucked on his finger and looked up and down at Chi-Chi, who was in Yanggua's arms. He felt that this little sister was quite cute, but she looked unfamiliar. He was timid and didn't dare to come up and greet her. Kiki had been sick and frightened for the past few days. She couldn't let go and always wanted to lean into her father's arms. Normally, she would have shouted for her father to let her down and walk. Therefore, Poplar Fruit wanted her to play with Alan's youngest son, but she refused. Just as Poplar Fruit was about to carry her down, she immediately turned cloudy. That night, Alan was finally willing to entertain Poplar Fruit at a high-end restaurant. His family followed Poplar Fruit and his father, and called a private room. Linda was a housewife, but she usually liked to pay attention to fashion. Today, she was dressed particularly charmingly. Her eyesight was much better than Alan's. In a short while, she discovered the uniqueness of Poplar Fruit's clothes. "Leon, your clothes!" Linda suddenly called out in a low voice. "What's wrong?" Alan's hand trembled as he tasted the red wine. He thought that some food had stained Poplar Fruit's body, so he took a few tissues and handed them over. Linda smiled and said, "No, that's not what I mean. Look at Leon's clothes. Isn't it a bit special?" "What's special?" Alan asked, puzzled. "The materials are exquisite, and the workmanship is exquisite. It's definitely not ordinary clothes." Linda pinched Poplar Fruit's sleeve with her fingers and rubbed it. "Really? Why can't I see it?" Alan asked, puzzled. "The design is very unique." Linda ignored this guy who only knew about games and didn't know anything and continued to analyze. "Looking at the workmanship, it should be handmade, but I can't find any representative logo." "Leon, did you cut off the logo?" Poplar Fruit scratched his head and said embarrassedly, "No, it's a draft of a friend of mine who works in the clothing industry. He didn't think it was successful, so I accepted it." "Then your friend must be a master." Linda nodded and said, "His sewing skills are really superb." Poplar Fruit smiled and didn't continue. He didn't think it was necessary to show off his relationship with the old man Ardal. After dinner, Linda gave Kiki a very beautiful Barbie doll. It was really beautiful. For girls, the charm of Barbie dolls was irresistible. After opening the package, Kiki couldn't wait to hold it in her arms. Finally, a bright smile bloomed on her face, which she hadn't seen for 2 days. Of course, this wasn't a good thing either. Chi-Chi was just like before. She had found her favorite again and she wouldn't let go anymore. Even when she slept, she would hug him to sleep. In the evening, Poplar Fruit called Feng Beibei again and told her the price of the card. $6 million. Feng Beibei panicked. She said incoherently on the phone, "No, I can't take so much money. Don't give it to me." Her thoughts were very similar to Poplar Fruit's in the morning. Poplar Fruit said with a smile, "Why can't I take it? It's all because of your hard work." "But it's all because of you. It's your idea." How can you give it to me just like that? Besides, it's so much money. I'm afraid. Fong Beibei said hesitantly. What are you afraid of? Poplar Fruit asked curiously. Fong Beibei hesitated for a while, then said, It's not good to have too much money. It'll become bad. Poplar Fruit didn't know how to answer. Fong Beibei also felt that what she had just said was a bit strange. She quickly said, Forget it. I'll wait until you come back. Come back early. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to buy tickets for the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 246. In a luxurious villa in Beijing, there was the sound of things being smashed. How many days has it been? Why is there no reply? Did you succeed? Give me a reply. F***ck your mother. Why is it so unreliable? Li Zichao roared. He picked up an ashtray and smashed it on the ground. The website he used to find assassins was a bit like a trading platform. He found an assassin there, paid a deposit, and the rest of the money was placed on the website. If he succeeded, the website would be responsible for sending the money to the assassin. If he failed or there was no reply from the assassin within 30 days, the rest of the money would be returned. Didn't the assassin say that he was ready to act when he found an opportunity? Why was there no news after 2 days? Without a phone number, he could only ask through the website's internal text message. Li Zichao had asked a few times, but there was no reply. Yang Guo, Zheng Yujie and the rest had been in the U.S. for almost a week. They should be back soon. Do I have to go and pick them up at the airport to confirm it? Or, the assassin was not short of money, and would only give him a reply when it was almost 30 days later? Li Zichao did not think that the assassin could not handle Poplar Fruit. He had investigated Poplar Fruit. He was a child from the countryside. He did not have any background or special abilities. Such a person was easy for the assassin. However, he had been looking forward to the news of Poplar Fruit's death. There was nothing better than seeing his love rival's corpse on the street. He did not know. Fortunately, he did not have the assassin's contact information. Otherwise, the American police and even the Interpol would be targeting him. On the way back to Los Angeles, Poplar Fruit received a message from Song Jiwen. Why aren't you back yet? I haven't finished my business. How can I come back? However, it could be done in 2 days. You are not sleeping in the middle of the night. Don't you have to go to work tomorrow? Poplar Fruit replied. Hey, I just wanted to tell you something big, Song Jiwen said. What is it? Poplar Fruit was shocked. That little junior sister of yours, your dear fake girlfriend, Miss Duan, is a big deal, Song Jiwen said. Poplar Fruit couldn't help but call him directly and ask, I'm going to faint. Can you finish your words in one go? What the hell? You're awesome. I'll make a long story short. I don't know what happened to Duan Xueqing 2 days ago. She was crying and crying. She even rushed to look for you. But you didn't come back, right? I asked her, but she didn't say anything. Song Jiwen said quickly. He also knew that the phone bill was expensive. What's going on? Poplar Fruit asked. Should I call her tomorrow and ask? I don't think it's necessary. Aren't you coming back in 2 days? If there's anything, it's better to talk about it face to face. Song Jiwen hesitated and said, It's not too late. It seems that when I saw her today, she stopped crying. But she was still cold and ignored me. After hanging up the phone, Poplar Fruit thought about it. He still felt a little worried, but it wasn't a good time to call now. It was better to wait until night, during the day in China, to call back and ask. To be honest, Song Jiwen had scared him just now. He had encountered a lot of things recently, and now Song Jiwen had given him another one. Yang Guo thought that something had happened to his parents. When he returned to Los Angeles, Zheng Yujie came to pick him up. The two of them discussed and decided to go shopping. After going abroad, they had to buy some gifts for their relatives and friends. Although they didn't buy things on behalf of others, they couldn't take back what they bought. After all, the things here were much cheaper than in China. Although Los Angeles couldn't be compared to the Big Apple, it was still the second largest city in the United States. When Poplar Fruit named Kiki, he got the inspiration from its name. There was a Disney children's park in Los Angeles. It was bigger and full of surprises than the one in Harbor City. Zheng Yujie smiled and asked Poplar Fruit if he wanted to take Kiki there. Poplar Fruit looked down at Kiki, who was immersed in the world of Barbie dolls, and shook his head with a smile. Kiki was too young now. Even if she went to the amusement park, she wouldn't be able to experience the fun of the amusement park. He would take her there when she was older. Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie spent more than half a day shopping. Poplar Fruit bought a lot of things and directly sent them back to China. Zheng Yujie didn't shop crazily like Poplar Fruit. She actually enjoyed the time with Poplar Fruit. Back in China, the two of them were from different places and couldn't see each other for a long time. It would be even better if the good times could be a little better. Of course, the good times weren't those strange things that everyone wanted to see. Before they returned to the hotel, Zheng Yujie received a call from young Martel. It was a call from Martel himself. He agreed. Zheng Yujie cheered excitedly at Poplar Fruit before she put down the phone. After waiting for 4 or 5 days, she finally got the good news. This was the first time she had completed a difficult task alone, without the support of other seniors in the publishing house. Zheng Yujie was as happy as a 15-year-old girl. She rushed towards Poplar Fruit and jumped onto Poplar Fruit's body. Poplar Fruit used one hand to protect Kiki and the other to catch Zheng Yujie, supporting her fleshy butt. Zheng Yujie hung onto Poplar Fruit and gave Poplar Fruit a kiss. "Okay, can you tell me what the situation is?" Poplar Fruit said with a smile. "Yang Martel said that your translation was very good. He decided to give the book to us. We'll sign the contract tomorrow," Zheng Yujie said quickly. She didn't even pant when she said that. "And he's also in Los Angeles." "That's great." Poplar Fruit put Zheng Yujie down and waved his fist. He said happily, "I knew he'd agree." After a night of partying and celebrating and coaxing Kiki to sleep, Poplar Fruit remembered what Song Jiwen said during the day. He picked up his phone and dialed Zheng Yujie's number. He had become numb to the calls from overseas for the past few days. She hung up? Poplar Fruit picked up his phone and looked at it suspiciously. He wondered if it was the same as Feng Beibei, where Duan Xueqing thought it was a scam call, so he sent a message to Duan Xueqing saying it was him, and asked her to answer the call. In the end, Duan Xueqing still hung up. He called again, and she hung up again. Then she turned off her phone. What's going on? Poplar Fruit was confused. She didn't pick up and even turned off her phone? What was Xueqing doing? It was daytime in China. Could it be that she didn't pick up her phone when she was in a meeting? She didn't have to turn off her phone. Forget it. Shaking his head, Poplar Fruit decided to put this matter aside for the time being. After signing the contract tomorrow, it was about time for him to return to China. Song Jiwen had a point. It was more convenient to talk about things face to face when he returned. But what happened to Duan Xueqing that made her in such a bad mood? Birthday, I'm 1 year older. Is Xiao Han leading the way in his journey towards 30? Haha, everyone must be happy. Chapter 247. Yang. The address that Martel gave them was inside UCLA. This university was abbreviated as UCLA. Although it was not as famous as Harvard and Stanford, and it was not as famous as the University of California, Berkeley, its strength was not to be underestimated. It was ranked second among the public universities in the United States, second only to the University of California, Berkeley. In the world rankings, it was also in the top 15. Yang Guo had heard of this university a long time ago, but it only existed in the quotes of some papers. Because the university was too big, about 1 square kilometer. Yang Guo and Zheng Yujie took a taxi directly to the school. The driver seemed to take this route often. Along the way, he happily introduced the buildings here to Yang Guo and Zheng Yujie. Yang Guo and Zheng Yujie were in a taxi. It had to be said that the university's buildings inherited the multicultural characteristics of the United States. Each building had its own characteristics, such as the medieval style, the Gothic style, the Slavic style, etc. The charm of buildings from all over the world could be found here. It was very different from the monotonous universities in China. Of course, The fusion of classical and modern was a major theme here. Nature and human buildings were closely integrated. Many of the buildings were covered with green plants, which gave it a somewhat harmonious charm. Yang Martel was going to hold a lecture here today. The scale of the lecture wasn't too big, so he decided to settle it with Yang Guo and the others after the lecture. However, this school was too big and Yang Guo? Martel himself did not quite understand. After Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie got off the car, they still had to ask for directions to find Yang, the building that Martel was talking about. It should be here. Poplar Fruit pointed to a large staircase classroom and said to Zheng Yujie. Although the door was closed, they could see many students sitting inside. Zheng Yujie carried her bag and followed Poplar Fruit. The two tiptoed and pushed open the back door and walked in. When they walked in, Poplar Fruit realized that they had walked into the wrong classroom. It wasn't Yang who was speaking on the podium. It wasn't Martel, but a white-haired old professor. He was immersed in his lecture, and didn't notice that two uninvited guests had barged in. There was a camera mounted on the stairs behind them, and a young man in a hat was operating it. When he heard the noise, he raised his head and looked at Poplar Fruit and Poplar Fruit strangely. He noticed Kiki in Poplar Fruit's arms, and then made a shushing gesture at them. Poplar Fruit was embarrassed. He quickly pulled Zheng Yujie back along the way and closed the door. He seemed to have heard some psychological terms. Probably this old professor was talking about psychology. After coming out, Poplar Fruit helplessly looked at Zheng Yujie, who was laughing. He pushed her and said, "Okay, I know I made a fool of myself. Do you have to be so exaggerated?" He thought of the young man who made the gesture to him and asked Zheng Yujie in confusion, "What's going on?" There was a camera there. Could it be that this school is broadcasting the class live? "You don't understand," Zheng Yujie said with a little pride. "They are having a public class." Under Zheng Yujie's introduction, Poplar Fruit understood that this was a new thing that gradually rose in the country after he graduated. Public classes, to put it bluntly, were some famous schools recording some of their lectures into videos, and then putting them on the internet for everyone to watch and download. In fact, there were already schools doing this a few years ago. The more famous one was Yale University's Game Theory. In essence, the public class was a way for the university to promote itself. It saved a lot of trouble, effort, and money. However, to a certain extent, it also allowed these sources of knowledge that only existed in the ivory tower to be shared around the world. Therefore, the public classes of the world's top universities would be sought after by people. After all, these were things that people could only look up to in the past. There are also many public class videos in our country, Zheng Yujie said. "I saw one a while ago. It's called Qinggu Mingyue. It's written about the moon in our Chinese culture. It's quite good." "So that's how it is." Yang Guo nodded thoughtfully. After a long time, they finally found Yang Martel. Martel. Leon. Yang Martel had just finished his lecture and was talking to a few students. When he saw Poplar Fruit, he happily greeted him. "Mr. Martel." Poplar Fruit shook hands with him and smiled. "Because I couldn't find anyone to help me, I brought my daughter here. I hope she won't disturb you." In fact, it wasn't that he couldn't find someone to take care of her. After Poplar Fruit went through a life and death struggle, he didn't feel comfortable letting his daughter stay with strangers. Besides, Kiki didn't want to either. "No problem. Today is the last step of our cooperation. There's no need to be so serious. Besides, looking at this cute little angel reminds me of my daughter when she was young." Martel laughed out loud. Yang. Under Martel's request, Poplar Fruit directly called him by his name, Yang. This made Poplar Fruit feel weird. He felt like he was calling himself Young Martel, who received the results of the business survey. Martel finally believed in Poplar Fruit's ability. There was no other way. In the face of this manuscript that didn't have the author's name and title, 87 out of 100 people chose, "Very good." How could he not be tempted? In fact, Yang Martel was extra careful. He used his own money to ask a business survey company to take the manuscripts that Yilin Publishing House had translated for him. Out of 100 people, only a dozen chose to continue reading. Everything was afraid of comparison. In comparison, Yilin's manuscripts seemed weak. The strong were willing to compare, because comparison could show off their strength. Poplar Fruit's manuscripts were like this. They became extra precious. As for the new contract Yang, Martel didn't have any objections, because it was better than what Yilin Publishing House had given him before. He paid more attention to this opportunity to cooperate with Poplar Fruit. After signing the contract Yang, Martel held Poplar Fruit's hand tightly and said seriously, "Leon, what you said to me last time is very reasonable. My book shouldn't be popular because of other people's movies. I also hope that my readers can truly recognize this book that I've poured my heart and soul into, and not because of a movie with the same name. And you also said that your translation can give my book a new lease of life in the Chinese mainland. I hope you can really do this." Martel stared into Poplar Fruit's eyes, looking very serious. Poplar Fruit patted his shoulder, smiled and said to him confidently, "Please rest assured I won't let you down." Walking out of the building, Poplar Fruit and Zheng Yujie, who was holding the contract tightly, looked at each other and smiled. They had conquered another fortress. Of course, this was only the beginning of the battle. This chapter is actually a foreshadowing, hee. Chapter 248. After staying in a foreign country for a long time, one would miss every bit of their hometown, especially Poplar Fruit. His appetite had been raised by himself, and he was not used to seeing raw vegetables and meat overseas. Although he did not look down on foreign food culture, he still preferred authentic Chinese cuisine. After signing the contract, Poplar Fruit did not want to stay in America anymore. So Zheng Yujie booked a flight back to China for the next day. Zheng Yujie originally asked Zheng Taiming to drive her Maserati to pick her up, but there was an annoying tail following behind. "Sis." Zheng Taiming's eyes were sharp, and he saw his sister walking out of the passage with a strong aura. He quickly stuck his upper body out from the crowd and waved his hand desperately. Zheng Yujie heard the sound, took off her sunglasses and looked over. Her face darkened, and she whispered to herself angrily, "Damn! How did this kid get bastardly here?" That's right, standing next to Zheng Taiming was Li Zichao, who looked feminine. He stood behind Zheng Taiming with a smile, trying to give Zheng Yujie a good impression. Li Zichao had thought it through. Zheng Yujie treated him like that, but he could not be angry. He had to marry her first, and then he would be angry. If he did not marry her, his future would be in vain. Since he had hired an assassin to deal with her lover, she should be in a state of heartbreak now. Then he could take advantage of the situation and take her down in one fell swoop. So even if he had to pretend, he had to do it well. However, Li Zichao's face froze immediately, because he saw Poplar Fruit, who was pushing a large suitcase and carrying a baby girl behind Zheng Yujie. Isn't he supposed to be dead? Li Zichao's eyes widened, and his heart was in a mess. Did the assassin really fail? If so, the disappearance of the assassin could be explained. But how could it be? How could a pauper from the countryside, a weak scholar, escape from the professional killers that he had hired with more than $100,000? Li Zichao's facial muscles were twisted together. His originally feminine appearance now looked somewhat ferocious. Poplar Fruit had already noticed when Li Zichao was looking at him that way. He looked at the guy behind Zheng Taiming strangely, not understanding why he was looking at him like that. Of course, Poplar Fruit wouldn't associate Li Zichao with his attack in Irwin. That would be too ridiculous. After all, it was his first time meeting Li Zichao. However, the obvious hostility felt very familiar. It's like the one who followed me before I went to America. Perhaps he was the pursuer that Zheng Yujie mentioned that she couldn't get rid of? Poplar Fruit thought to himself. He was quite at ease as he leisurely followed behind Zheng Yujie. Why did you bring him here? Zheng Yujie didn't wait for Zheng Taiming to answer. She raised her hand and said domineeringly, You shut up. You don't have to say anything. Give me the key. I'll go back by myself." Before Zheng Taiming could react, Zheng Yujie took the key from his waist directly. Then she casually threw $200 and a sentence. "You can take a taxi back by yourself. Don't come to see me if you don't understand." Poplar Fruit looked at Zheng Taiming, who had a bitter face, and then looked at Zheng Yujie, who walked forward without looking back. He saluted Zheng Taiming as a greeting, and then quickly followed with his daughter in his arms. When they got into the car, Zheng Yujie seemed to have changed into a different person. She suddenly became gentle. And before she started the car, she even used her long and slender fingers to gently poke Chi-Chi's face. She smiled and said, "Chi-Chi, Aunt Zheng is going to drive. Do you like it?" Kiki held the Barbie doll with one hand and waved happily with the other. She said in a childish voice, Car, hurry up." "Okay, let's hurry up." Zheng Yujie laughed. The engine roared, and the Maserati directly started at 70 kilometers per hour. Then it sped up to 120 kilometers per hour. Fortunately, they were soon on the highway. The traffic was relatively small, so Poplar Fruit wasn't very worried. Lisa Chow, who was walking slowly at the back, couldn't see the Maserati after getting on the car. He angrily punched the steering wheel with his fist again. Now that Zheng Taiming didn't dare to hang out with him and ran to call for a taxi, he could vent his anger to his heart's content. Again and again, "Zheng Yujie, Poplar Fruit, you are slapping my face." Lisa Chow roared ferociously. No matter how much he screamed in the car, no one would hear him, because when the security saw his luxury car, they would hide far away. "No, Zheng Yujie, you will definitely be mine. Just you wait." Lisa Chow fumbled for his phone and looked for the contact list. "It's fine, you stick to him first. After I'm done with him, I'll take care of you. Poplar Fruit, you have no background and you dare to snatch my woman? You're looking down on my Li family too much." Lisa Chow looked at the phone number on the screen and sneered. "If I do a thorough investigation of you, do you think I can't take care of an aunt like you? I don't believe that I can't." His gaze returned to Zheng Yujie's car. Poplar Fruit did not directly take the plane back from Beijing's airport, because it would be evening by the time he reached Beijing. If he took the plane again, he estimated that he would only reach Guangzhou in the middle of the night. Thus, he might as well spend the night in Beijing. Zheng Yujie drove the car and smiled at Poplar Fruit. "Oh right, little Poplar Fruit, when is it convenient for you? I'll come over to Guangzhou to look for you." Poplar Fruit turned his head to look at her in puzzlement. "You told me about it when we were in Big Apple." Zheng Yujie glanced at him from the corner of her eyes and smiled. "Tell me when I'll go over. You can take me to the fun places in Guangdong province. I remember all of them." "Oh." Poplar Fruit suddenly understood and said, "Okay, I'll bring you there whenever you come over. It's convenient for me." Poplar Fruit suddenly remembered the matter with Duan Xueqing. He scratched his head and changed his words. "But let's not do it this month. It's a little inconvenient. I've been running around outside for a few days. I'll go back and rest first. Kiki also needs to recuperate." Actually, that wasn't the reason at all. He just remembered that Duan Xueqing lived downstairs. If he didn't solve her unknown problem and Zheng Yujie went over, the two of them would be like Mars meeting Earth. Just thinking about it gave him a headache. If Zheng Yujie wanted to come over, Poplar Fruit would gladly agree. But the premise was that he had to solve the problem with Duan Xueqing. "It's not convenient. You don't have any sincerity." Zheng Yujie curled her lips and said, Poplar Fruit was even more embarrassed. He didn't know what to say. "Okay." Seeing that Poplar Fruit was in a difficult position, Zheng Yujie's heart softened. She said, "I'm just saying. I don't have to go back with you now. Let's talk about it when I'm on vacation." Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, please use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 249. Poplar Fruit counted his fingers and found that he had been out for 15 or 16 days. He had not been home for half a month. When he opened the door, Poplar Fruit felt that the air in the house was a little moldy. So the first thing Poplar Fruit did when he got home was to open all the doors and windows of the house to ventilate it. "Papa!" Kiki kicked her legs, pushed the baby walker and ran happily to Poplar Fruit's side. The baby walker slammed into the sofa. "Ouch, I hit it, hee." Kiki laughed foolishly. "Get out of the way." Poplar Fruit coaxed and pushed Kiki and the baby walker away with one foot. Papa is going to mop the floor. He bent down and carefully wiped Kiki's position and the edge of the sofa with the mop. Kiki did not give up. She pushed the baby walker around Poplar Fruit and asked, "Papa, where is Gold?" Like a spinning top, she swayed in front of Poplar Fruit from time to time. This little girl even held her Barbie doll in the baby walker. "Gold is with Sister Bebe. We will ask her to get it back later," Poplar Fruit said with a smile and continued to work. "Where's Bebe?" Chi-Chi asked incessantly, and there were already signs of 100,000 whys in her mind. "Bebe is at school. Wait a minute. When Papa is done, I will call her and ask her to talk to you, okay?" Poplar Fruit said patiently. Okay. Kiki got what she wanted. She did not continue to pester her father. Instead, she sat in the baby walker and played with her Barbie doll. She whispered to herself, "Gold Bebe Bebe Gold hee hee. This girl." Poplar Fruit shook his head and continued to work. After the house was refurbished, Poplar Fruit called Fong Bebe and told her that he was back and that he would go to school to find her in 2 days. Kiki, on the other hand, was talking to Fong Bebe on the phone. No one knew what they were talking about, but they seemed to be engrossed in the conversation. After calling Fong Bebe, Poplar Fruit called his relatives and friends one by one to announce his return. Everyone had different reactions. His mother was more concerned about when he would return to his hometown. It was almost the middle of April, so he should be back by now. Poplar Fruit scratched his head and promised her that he would return as soon as possible. He had just returned to Yangcheng, so there must be many things that he had to deal with. Song Jiwen only knew how to eat. Over the phone he kept pestering Poplar Fruit to ask if he had brought anything delicious back for him. Poplar Fruit rolled his eyes and said, "Didn't I send everything back for you to keep? Don't you know if there's anything to eat at home?" Duan Xueqing still did not pick up his calls, and Poplar Fruit did not know what was wrong with her. He decided to ask her directly when she came back from work. Yao Dehua was a busy man, so he hurriedly said a few words to Poplar Fruit about the meeting next Monday. Poplar Fruit agreed. Since he had accepted the position given by Yao Dehua and taken his shares, he had to help him. Wenjua's phone could not be reached, so he asked his sister-in-law. It turned out that he was out on a mission, so Poplar Fruit arranged a time to visit him. He did not have any relationship with Wenjua, but he had brought some gaming peripherals from the US. He wanted to give some to his nephew, and he knew that he would definitely like it. She didn't need to list the others. Anyway, after a lot of calls, it was already lunchtime. Her stomach was rumbling with hunger, and her mouth was dry. Yanghua quickly made herself a bowl of noodles. Because there was no meat or vegetables in the fridge, she could only eat vegetarian noodles. In the evening, Song Jiwen returned home. Poplar Fruit was busy preparing dinner in the kitchen. When Song Jiwen opened the kitchen door, the smell of garlic and oil wafted out. Delicious food. Song Jiwen was drooling. He did not wash his hands and directly threw a piece of pork intestine into his mouth. Delicious. It's really delicious. Don't make trouble here. Get out. The oil and fumes are going to enter the house. Poplar Fruit kicked him out and closed the door. Kiki sat in the baby walker and giggled when she saw Song Jiwen being kicked out. Heartless. What a waste of uncle's love for you. Song Jiwen mumbled and gestured at Kiki. Then he went to the bathroom to wash his greasy paws. After coming out, Song Jiwen squatted beside Kiki and teased her. "Kiki, you were in the US for so long. Did you miss Uncle Mosquito?" "I didn't." After Chi-Chi said this, she turned her head and wanted to run away. However, Song Jiwen held onto the baby walker and pulled her back. She kicked her legs wildly, but they wouldn't budge, so she started to whine and act coquettishly. I didn't miss Uncle Mosquito. Uncle Mosquito is so sad." Song Jiwen insisted on acting. He covered his left chest and pretended to fall. One of his eyes was still squinting to see Kiki's reaction. He was destined to be disappointed. Kiki blinked her eyes, her long eyelashes blinking. She looked at him without saying anything. He did not know if it was an expression of speechlessness. "Damn little Kiki, you are so uncooperative," Song Jiwen said gloomily. "Don't swear in front of my daughter." Poplar Fruit had sharp ears and shouted in the kitchen. "You can hear that?" Song Jiwen was even more depressed. They were separated by a glass door. The sound of the fire, the kitchen hood, and the clashing of pots and spatulas were all so loud. How could he still hear him? Song Ji-wen saw a Barbie doll on Kiki's baby walker. What is this? Did Poplar Fruit buy it for you in the United States? After saying that, he reached out to take it. Kiki treasured this Barbie doll so much that she did not even give it to her biological father, Poplar Fruit. How could she let Song Ji-wen touch it? She reached out like lightning and took the Barbie doll back into her arms. Then she twisted her waist to protect it. She did not even let Song Ji-wen see it. Let Uncle Mosquito see it? Just take a look. Song Ji-wen coaxed. He had not seen clearly what the doll looked like. No. Kiki stammered. Show it, show it. After thinking for a long time, she finished the rest of her words. It's Kiki's. I know it's yours. Song Ji-wen coaxed. I'll just take a look. I'll return it to you after I take a look. Kiki shook her head. She remembered that Song Ji-wen, the guy with a bad conscience, had lied to her last time that she would let him take a look. In the end, he had peeled open Kiki's candy and eaten it. Although he had taken another one from the jar for Kiki, Kiki would forever remember his ugly face. Song Ji-wen rolled his eyes and continued to coax her. How about this, Kiki? Let me take a look. Later, I'll buy you 10 of these, and each of them will look different. How about that? He knew that Kiki was very smart and could understand what he meant. Kiki hesitated. It seemed very tempting to exchange one look for 10. She lowered her head to look at the Barbie doll in her arms, then looked at Song Ji-wen's shy face. In the end, she shook her head resolutely. Haha, you lied to my daughter. You deserve it. Poplar Fruit, who had been standing behind them, laughed loudly. He knew the cause and effect of this. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 250. After knocking for a while, Duan Xueching's door slowly opened. Poplar Fruit was holding Kiki with a bright smile on his face. He waved at her and said, Good evening. We're back. Duan Xueching held onto the door frame and didn't speak. Half of her face was exposed. Under her cold expression, there was a trace of sadness. She always hid her emotions well, but Poplar Fruit still noticed it. What's wrong with you? Poplar Fruit asked in confusion. Why aren't you talking? You didn't pick up when I called you earlier? You won't let me in? Duan Xueching hesitated for a moment before opening the door. She turned sideways and let Poplar Fruit in. The living room was dark, and only the bedroom had a faint light. The light wasn't from a lamp, but was similar to a table lamp. Poplar Fruit turned around and felt around on the wall near the door before turning on the light in the living room. You're going to bed so early? Poplar Fruit looked at the time. It was only 8:30. No. Duan Xueching said. Her words as precious as gold. She usually didn't speak much, but at this moment, Poplar Fruit felt that she spoke even less to him. This wasn't normal. The former was due to her personality, while the latter was intentional. What's wrong with you? Poplar Fruit leaned his butt against the sofa and asked in confusion. You're cold to Song Ji-wen, so why are you cold to me? Is there something in your heart that you can't tell me? Who are you to me? Duan Xueching couldn't help but say this sentence. Then she turned her head and looked at the ground. She didn't know what was there to see on the ground, but she didn't want to look at Poplar Fruit. What do you mean? Even if Poplar Fruit was a blockhead, he could hear something strange. He frowned and said, We're classmates and good friends. If there's something you can't solve, we can discuss it. Just good friends? Duan Xueching suddenly looked at Poplar Fruit and looked like she was about to cry. She didn't cry easily. Poplar Fruit hadn't seen Duan Xueching cry in the past few years. Seeing her like this, he panicked. He quickly stood up and asked, Hey, don't cry. What's the matter? Tell me. What did I do wrong? If you don't tell me, how will I know? In the end, Duan Xueching held back her tears. She walked into the bedroom and came out with a brown envelope. She tilted her head and handed it to Yang Gua. What is it? Poplar Fruit took the envelope in confusion. Poplar Fruit was holding Kiki. It was a little inconvenient, but he still awkwardly took out the things inside. It was a stack of photos. Poplar Fruit was very familiar with the content of the photos. Wasn't it him and Fong Beibei? There were many scenes such as on the school road, in front of the apartment by the Zhu River, and even a photo of the two of them on the balcony. Kiki was also in the photo, but it didn't matter. It was the stalker who knew martial arts. Suddenly, Poplar Fruit's mind flashed with the strange man who escaped with his agile body. That's right, it must be him. Poplar Fruit couldn't imagine who else would have these photos except for that strange man. Was it Duan Xueqing who hired someone to take these photos? Poplar Fruit extinguished the thought just as it flashed through his mind. He wasn't stupid. These photos were obviously a conspiracy. How could it be Duan Xueqing who hired someone to take these photos? If it was Duan Xueqing who hired someone to take these photos, how could the feeling of being spied on appear in the neighborhood? Besides, Duan Xueqing wasn't that kind of person. Someone who knew martial arts and knew about him and Duan Xueqing. Poplar Fruit immediately thought of the few Xing-Yi fist hooligans he met at the hot pot restaurant that day. They couldn't beat him, so they came up with this idea to sow discord between him and Duan Xueqing. Poplar Fruit was furious at the thought of being secretly photographed. The veins on the back of his hand bulged as he held the photos. He couldn't wait to throw the photos away and settle the score with them. Beibei. Kiki's eyes were sharp. She lowered her head and curiously looked at the photos in her father's hands. She recognized the person who was singing by the river at a glance. She happily called out, "Kiki, Papa." Kiki recognized everyone, but Duan Xueqing's face turned a little paler. She was on the verge of collapsing. She tilted her head and pressed it against the back of the sofa. She said gloomily, "How long have you been together?" "What do you mean, how long have we been together?" Poplar Fruit felt that this question was wrong. He explained, "The person in the photo is my friend." "You're living together and you're still just friends?" Duan Xueqing couldn't help but ask. "When did we live together?" Poplar Fruit said speechlessly, "I rented that place to live in when I was in school. It's too troublesome to come and go. And she's here to play with us as well. Aren't I good friends with her and you?" Although he said this, Yang still felt that he was lying. His feelings for Fong Beibei should be deeper than that of a friend. However, they were just friends. Therefore, it wasn't wrong to say that they were friends, and it wasn't a lie. "You and I are just good friends." Duan Xueqing felt like crying. Her eyes were filled with tears. How familiar was this dialogue? Weren't all the melodramatic TV dramas like this? No matter how slow Poplar Fruit was, he finally understood the crux of the problem. The girl in front of him, just like Song Jiwen said, had feelings for him. Moreover, it wasn't just feelings. After the incident where she pretended to be his girlfriend in front of his mother, she had already misunderstood his thoughts. Poplar Fruit had a good memory. His mind quickly flashed back to Duan Xueqing's behavior before he went abroad. If that was the case, then Duan Xueqing's unhappiness when she heard that he was going abroad with Zhang Yujie made sense. Although his EQ wasn't high, Poplar Fruit still decided to clarify this relationship with Duan Xueqing. He said, "Xueqing, don't you know? I've always treated you as my good friend." When he said this, he wanted to slap himself. It was too melodramatic. Wasn't this the "I've always treated you as my sister" melodramatic plot that he had always hated? No, what I meant was, Poplar Fruit saw Duan Xueqing's expression quickly turn gloomy. He also knew that he was being too blunt. He quickly explained, "What I meant was that we are really good friends now. I don't know if you've misunderstood." Why did it feel like the more he explained, the worse it felt? Duan Xueqing stood up straight. She tilted her head and didn't want to look at him. She pushed Poplar Fruit out and said in a low voice, "Okay, you don't have to explain. I'm going to sleep." Bang. The door slammed shut, cutting off Poplar Fruit's thoughts of saying more. Poplar Fruit didn't know why he felt so frustrated. He hugged his daughter and couldn't let it out. At this moment, he realized that he had brought the stack of photos with him. Yes, the Guo family's Xingyi boxing dojo. Poplar Fruit gritted his teeth. He clenched his left hand into a fist and squeezed the photos until they made cracking sounds. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, Use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 251. After driving back to school, Yonghua first brought some things from America to the dean. In the end, she was scolded by the dean. Chun Zongdai scolded him for going to America for so long and neglecting his studies. Secondly, he scolded him for having nowhere to spend his money and buying useless things. In the end, Chun Zongdai accepted his disciple's gift and told him to quickly catch up on his studies. Poplar Fruit was scolded by the dean and left the school building with a gloomy face. He then went to the teacher's apartment to find Fong Beibei. She didn't have any classes today, so she stayed in the apartment to study. The content was naturally mathematics. As for English, without Poplar Fruit's supervision, how could she take the initiative to study? You're finally back. Before Fong Beibei's voice fell, a golden figure jumped out from the bedroom and pounced on Poplar Fruit, Kiki in his arms. Of course, Goldie couldn't jump that high. Although it grew very fast, it could only touch Poplar Fruit's belt at most. However, it jumped up excitedly and pulled Poplar Fruit's pants. It almost bit down. Goldie! Kiki shouted happily and reached out to touch it. Poplar Fruit couldn't even hug it. Poplar Fruit put Kiki on the floor. Fong Beibei wiped it clean anyway, so the two little ones could play. Goldie was now a little bigger than Kiki. Kiki couldn't even hold it down. The girl and the dog rolled around on the floor and laughed nonstop. Poplar Fruit quickly moved all the dangerous items on the chairs and stools next to them. Didn't you say you would come back tomorrow? Fong Beibei asked. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. I had something to do, so I came over first. If you didn't come back, the girls in my dormitory would have taken Jinzi for themselves, hee. Fong Beibei told Poplar Fruit about the time she brought Jinzi back to her dormitory. As a result, Goldie, this cute pet, became the apple of everyone's eye in the dormitory next door, and the dormitory next door. More than a dozen girls surrounded Goldie, and the food they ate piled up into a small mountain. Goldie was almost stuffed to death. Guess what I brought you? After saying this, Poplar Fruit turned around and found that Fong Beibei had already opened the bag he had brought. Do you still need to guess? Fong Beibei said as she took it out. I found it by myself. Clothes bags and some food. Fong Beibei looked at the bag with two inverted arcs and was shocked. Chanel? Why did you buy this for me? Don't you know that this is very expensive? You don't like it. Poplar Fruit opened his mouth and said while scratching his head. I saw that your bag is a bit old. He did not have the habit of buying branded items, but he did have money now, so he did not think that a few $100s was expensive. I know how to bring a bag, but there's no need to buy such an expensive one. Fong Beibei frowned and said with a look of disdain. A few $1,000s, what can't I do? A bag that costs a few $100s can't be that bad. Money can be used to do good deeds. Then what should I do? Poplar Fruit asked hesitantly. Since I've already bought it, I won't buy something so expensive next time. How can I accept such expensive things when you bought me such an expensive one? Fong Beibei insisted and shook her head firmly. I'll accept these snacks and bring them back to eat with my roommates. You can deal with the rest. Fong Beibei felt that her words were a bit harsh, so she looked into Poplar Fruit's eyes and added, Don't feel bad, it's so expensive. I really can't accept it, but I appreciate your kindness. I understand that you're doing this for my own good. Alright, I'll see how to deal with it later. Poplar Fruit finally understood Fong Beibei's personality. He repacked the two items and thought that he should bring them home for his sister. She would like them. Oh yeah. Poplar Fruit took out a card from his pocket and handed it to Fong Beibei. He said, You have to keep this. What's this from? Fong Beibei took it and asked curiously. Clatter, clatter. Kiki probably grabbed Goldie's tail, and Goldie jumped up and accidentally knocked over the box that Poplar Fruit had just rearranged. The Chanel bag fell out. Poplar Fruit squatted down again helplessly and answered Fong Beibei while rearranging. It's the money I told you about a few days ago. I sold the game for $6 million, and there's $3 million in your card. The password is Kiki's birthday. Hey, I can't accept it. Fong Beibei stuffed the card back as if it was scalding her hand. No, this is what you deserve. Why don't you accept it? Poplar Fruit said with a headache. That's too much. Fong Beibei shook her head and said, I can't accept it. Poplar Fruit felt that she seemed to be subconsciously looking for an excuse not to accept it. This game is your idea, and all the cards were designed by you. I didn't even use my brain. Besides, you sold it. Why are you giving me the money? No. Poplar Fruit felt that he should not push her too hard. He put down the card, leaned against the table, and stood next to Fong Beibei. He said, Don't get agitated, listen to me. Fong Beibei took a deep breath and nodded, but her eyes were looking at Kiki and Goldie. You made a lot of contributions to the birth of this game. Poplar Fruit said, Think about it, if you didn't give me directions, how could I design the cards? If you didn't help to deal with the data problems, could the cards still be played? If you didn't stay up late to sort out the cards, how could I sell the cards so coincidentally? But Fong Beibei just opened her mouth, and Poplar Fruit pressed her lips with his finger. No buts. Your contribution can't be erased. It's very reasonable to give you half of it. Poplar Fruit felt Fong Beibei's soft lips, and his heart swayed. Since he broke up with Lu Yunran, he had not touched a woman's lips. But when he saw Fong Beibei's eyes staring at him, he had to take back his finger embarrassedly. It's a little more money, but you can take it. It's $3 million. Didn't you say that money can be used to do good things? With so much money, you can do as many good things as you want. Poplar Fruit said with a smile. For example, you can help Uncle and Auntie do better at the relief station with hundreds of thousands of dollars. You don't want me to keep the money and squander it all, do you? Don't you dare. Fong Beibei stared and snatched the card back. She touched the card, looked at Poplar Fruit, and asked him seriously, Then how are you going to spend the remaining $3 million? You won't squander it to cheat the little girl, will you? Poplar Fruit was dumbfounded. It was not easy to persuade Fong Beibei to take the money, but she began to plot against him? There is actually a loophole here. Xiaohan didn't deduct the income tax when he was lazy. You can just ignore it. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to asterisk. Chapter 252. In the end, Poplar Fruit raised his index finger, middle finger, and ring finger and swore that he would put the 3 million yuan into good use. Only then did Fong Beibei let him go. You're leaving? Fong Beibei saw Poplar Fruit coming out of the bathroom. She picked up her car keys, wallet, and other belongings from the table and asked, You just came back. Aren't you going to teach me today? They didn't realize that they talked to each other as casually as if they were a family. However, Fong Beibei's words revealed a hint of reluctance. Of course, she didn't know whether she was reluctant to part with Jean Z or Kiki. Poplar Fruit, she hadn't thought about that yet. No, I have something to do. I'll be back later. Poplar Fruit took out his sneakers from the shoe cabinet and said while putting them on, Kiki and Jean Z will stay here. Can you take care of them for a while? Okay, don't worry. Fong Beibei picked up Kiki, who was lying on the ground like a human rag, and wiped her face with her hands. Poplar Fruit came to Fong Beibei in advance today mainly because he wanted her to take care of Kiki, so that he could go to Gua family's Xingyi boxing club to denounce them. Initially, Yang Gua thought that they would not cause trouble, so she had let Fu Lei and the rest off. But they kept coming to offend her. If they did not succeed the first time, they would come again. If they did not succeed, they would come again. They were as annoying as flies. It wasn't just Poplar Fruit's problem. They had interfered with the lives of Fong Beibei, Duan Xueqing, and even his daughter. Poplar Fruit was furious when he came out of Duan Xueqing's room last night. Today he was going to solve this problem once and for all. The huge Land Rover stopped at the gate of Gua family's Xingyi boxing club. He accidentally saw the location of the car when he first bought it, so he was familiar with it today. Poplar Fruit opened the door and got out. A security guard came up to him and said, Hey, you can't park here. Move away quickly. She glared at the security guard, and the security guard was so scared that he took 2 steps back. Firstly, Yang Gua's car looked very expensive, and he couldn't afford to offend her. Secondly, Yongguo's eyes were a little red. This was a sign that Poplar Fruit was about to explode in anger. However, he clenched his fists and loosened them, turned back to the car and drove. In the end, his heart softened. After all, the security guard was also a part-time worker and had never offended him. There was no need to ruin someone's livelihood over a small matter. Poplar Fruit came from the countryside, so he knew that it wasn't easy for people at the bottom of society to live. He pushed open the door and stepped into Guo family's Xingyi boxing club. A girl at the front desk came up to him and said, "Sir, are you here to learn martial arts?" The girl at the front desk was wearing a plain blue striped martial arts uniform. Her hair was tied into 2 buns and she looked very cute. However, Poplar Fruit didn't pay attention to her. He waved his hand and walked straight ahead. In front of him was a martial arts practice field the size of 2 basketball courts. The ground was covered with a layer of foam cushions. 20 or so young people in their teens and 20s were under the lead of a person. They were demonstrating fist and palm moves. Step forward, bursting fist. Bang. Step back, bursting fist. Bang. Twisting step, cannon fist. Bang. It could be seen that this group of young people were all beginners. Their fists were weak and their bodies were crooked. However, their shouts were very loud, and they looked very orderly and imposing. The martial arts master who was leading them had some martial arts skills. His moves were on point, but he was old and his strength couldn't even be compared to Fu Lei. Poplar Fruit only looked at him for a moment, before continuing to walk forward. "Hey." The girl at the front desk hurriedly blocked Poplar Fruit's path and asked, "Sir, you can't go any further. If there's anything, can you tell me? We have to register first." This girl didn't sound like she was from Cantonese province. "Stop." The martial arts master saw the commotion and raised his hand to stop his students. He then walked over and asked, "What happened?" Nothing. The girl at the front desk quickly replied. "I'm looking for Fu Lei." Poplar Fruit looked at the martial arts master and said coldly. In his mind, he had already categorized the people of Guo Family Martial Arts School as the same type as the crew cut guy. The martial arts master frowned. Although he didn't have a high position in the school and could only guide the newbies, he was old and had more experience. From Poplar Fruit's aggressive manner, he felt that today's matter wasn't simple. He asked, "Fu Lei is a disciple of our inner school. Why are you looking for him?" The Guo Family Martial Arts School's structure had to be mentioned. The school was divided into inner and outer schools. The outer school's main business was to provide martial arts enthusiasts and fitness enthusiasts with a place to practice martial arts and earn operating funds. The inner school mainly recruited young people with potential to be trained. Not only did it not take money, but it also provided food and accommodation, and even a good salary. Usually, the disciples of the inner school would not only practice under the guidance of the master and a few senior brothers, but they would also take turns to teach the outer school's disciples. Their main purpose of practicing martial arts was to participate in various martial arts competitions, not underground fighting, and win honor for the school and themselves. This could be considered a way of survival for modern martial arts schools. However, Poplar Fruit didn't care about the inner or outer school. The person he was looking for was Fu Lei. He said, "It's a personal grudge. Can you tell me where he is?" "Young man, don't be so impulsive." The martial arts master persuaded him. "This is a martial arts school, not a place for you to take revenge." Poplar Fruit frowned. He didn't want to continue talking nonsense with him. He walked around him and walked forward. "Hey." Martial arts practitioners were always a little angry. Seeing Poplar Fruit being so stubborn, the martial arts master was furious. He reached out to grab Poplar Fruit's shoulder. Poplar Fruit felt it as soon as the martial arts master touched his shoulder. His reaction was very fast. The martial arts master saw Poplar Fruit's shoulder suddenly drop, and then his hand was twisted. Then a strong force pulled him. He lost his balance and fell forward. "Ah!" The girl at the front desk covered her mouth and let out a low cry. The 20 or so students who were watching the situation unfold were so shocked that their jaws dropped. Their teacher, who had been fighting fiercely just a moment ago, was knocked down by a thin and weak young man in one move. This was really too unexpected. Ouch! The martial arts master cried out in pain. Poplar Fruit didn't show any mercy. His chin hit the ground, and his teeth almost fell out. What happened? There were a few martial arts practice fields inside. The movement was too loud, and several martial arts masters heard it. They quickly ran over and helped the martial arts master who was groaning on the mat. Ouch, it hurts. He's looking for trouble with senior brother Fule. The martial arts master who was taken down by Poplar Fruit said in pain. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 253. Brother, did you come to the wrong place to pick a fight in our dojo? A boxer stood up and clenched his fists. I think you're looking for death. A fierce-looking boxer had a bad temper. Without waiting for Poplar Fruit to speak, he cursed and threw a punch at Poplar Fruit. Was this the way the Gua family's Shingi boxing dojo did things? The crew-cut boy was like this, and so were these people. Poplar Fruit's eyes were burning with anger as he thought to himself. People who practice martial arts don't cultivate their moral character. All you do is shout and kill. I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your ancestors. The fierce-looking boxer's fists were as big as alms bowls. When he swung his fists, the students next to him cried out in alarm. However, his strength was average. Poplar Fruit could see that his lower body was unstable. He just grabbed the boxer's fist and used the force to twist it. The fierce-looking boxer fell to the ground. His butt hit the ground, and with the cushioning, it didn't hurt that much. However, the psychological difference made his eyes filled with surprise. F***ck. Kid, you're so sneaky. Do you think there's no one in our dojo? The remaining 3 boxers came up, and one of them said angrily, Am I sneaky? You know who started it first. Poplar Fruit retorted coldly. I came here today to find Fule. I don't want to cause trouble. If you want to find trouble with senior brother Fule, you'll have to go through us first. One of the boxers said. Beat him up. The fierce-looking boxer shouted himself hoarse on the ground. He didn't have any serious injuries, but he felt that it was too shameful to be defeated in one move. Therefore he became angry out of shame. Poplar Fruit's eyes turned cold. He slowly moved his left leg forward and slightly bent his right leg. His hands were in a fighting position. Looks like if I don't defeat them today, I won't be able to see Fule and the other bastards again. The young boxer took the lead and rushed over. His shingy fist was pretty good. At the very least, when he punched, he used the drilling fist that he usually practiced and directly attacked Poplar Fruit's ribs. The speed of the punch was very fast. With the reaction speed of an ordinary person, it was impossible for them to dodge. But was Poplar Fruit an ordinary person? Poplar Fruit didn't even try to dodge. Seeing the drilling fist coming at him, he clenched his left thumb and turned his palm into a knife, chopping at the wrist joint of the young boxer's fist. Sigh. The young boxer couldn't clench his fist after being chopped by such a powerful force. He loosened his fist like a chicken claw. Just as he was about to cry out, he immediately swallowed it back down. Yonggwa raised his hind leg and kicked forward. The young boxer felt pain in his stomach and fell back. Poplar Fruit didn't have time to appreciate the scene of the young boxer rolling on the ground. The other 2 boxers rushed over from the left and right. The one on the left used the crushing fist, while the one on the right used the blasting fist. Poplar Fruit turned around and stretched out his left hand. He grabbed the left boxer's wrist and pressed it down. At the same time, he clenched his right fist and punched out. Only Poplar Fruit could multitask and use the left and right mutual attack that only existed in novels and movies. Facing the blasting fist from the right, Poplar Fruit didn't dodge this time. His right hand also used the blasting fist posture of Shingy Fist. The 2 fists collided with each other with a muffled bang. The right boxer used his strength first, while Poplar Fruit used his strength later. With his great strength and hard fists, Poplar Fruit didn't suffer any losses in this fight. Ouch! The right boxer held his right hand and knelt on the ground. His 5 knuckles were in great pain as if they had been cracked. Tears flowed down his face. It's useless. Poplar Fruit said coldly. In fact, he had already saved his strength and only used less than 50% of it. If he used his full strength, the right hand of this boxer would be crippled. His left hand suddenly tightened. Yang turned his head and saw that the boxer on his left was holding his left hand tightly and using his body strength to press it down. It was unknown when the fierce-looking boxer had stood up. He jumped over like a white crane spreading its wings. The tip of his right foot lit up as he ruthlessly kicked towards Yang Guozheng's ribs. Too shameless. Was this a gang fight between street thugs? How could this be? A cold light flashed in Poplar Fruit's eyes. He didn't pull his left hand out, but pressed it on the left boxer's body. He did a front somersault and barely dodged the kick of the fierce-looking boxer. Then his right leg flew diagonally and kicked the boxer's hind leg. The fierce-looking boxer jumped too fast and was kicked by Poplar Fruit while he was still in the air. His hind leg was the supporting leg when he landed. As a result, he lost his balance and fell down again. This time he fell heavily. The white crane spreading its wings turned into a wild goose falling flat on the sand. He almost lost his breath from the fall. The boxer who held Poplar Fruit's left hand didn't fare any better. When Poplar Fruit retracted his right leg, he took advantage of the momentum to hit his shoulder and directly smashed him down. Thus, Poplar Fruit's left hand was freed. Again. Feeling that someone was about to rush over from the side, Poplar Fruit raised his right fist and coldly looked at the young boxer who had already stood up. The young boxer was startled. He stopped and looked at his fellow boxers who were lying on the ground. The painful cries didn't stop. He timidly took 2 steps back. After all, he wasn't a person who made a living by fighting in the underworld. He didn't have the courage to risk his life against an expert who repeatedly knocked down 4 or 5 boxers on his side. His shoulder was pressed. The young boxer was like a bird startled by the twang of a bow. He was so scared that he cried out loudly and almost begged for mercy. When he turned around, he didn't know when a few people came behind him. They were all wearing the formal attire of the inner hall. Big brother. The young boxer seemed to have become stuttering as he stuttered in surprise. Poplar Fruit frowned and looked at the 5 newcomers. Compared to the previous few who were outwardly strong but inwardly weak, the 5 newcomers had a much stronger aura. They were generally not tall, only about 1.75 meters, but they were full of energy. They stood there with their hands on their hips, or their arms crossed in front of their chests. Their legs were slightly apart, and the soles of their feet seemed to be rooted to the ground. At first glance, one could tell that they had a solid foundation of the 3 postures. As for the eldest senior brother who was leading the group, he was in his early 30s, but his muscles were taut and his fists were clenched tightly. One could see that his joints were thick even if he didn't clench his fists. He was comparable to Yang Zhengdong. He was a master. Poplar Fruit judged in his heart. Of course, he was sure that the 5 of them combined couldn't beat Meng Sanhua. After all, Meng Sanhua had gone through life and death training. His martial arts had already formed his own style. He wasn't at the grandmaster level, but he wasn't far from it. However, Poplar Fruit was still disappointed. Because among the 5 newcomers, he still didn't see Fu Lei's figure. He even looked around the entire martial arts hall. He didn't even see the shadows of the people who appeared at the hot pot restaurant that day, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, please use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 254. What's going on? How did it end up like this? The eldest senior brother asked the young boxer who was startled by the mere twang of a bow. His voice was very deep, giving people the feeling of an announcer, which was very comfortable to listen to. With a backer, the young boxer straightened his back, pointed at Poplar Fruit and said, "He came to make trouble, and we don't know how we provoked him. Eldest senior brother, you see we were all injured by him." "You're distorting the truth." Poplar Fruit angrily pointed at him and scolded. "I've been saying since I came in that I'm looking for Fu Lei, and it has nothing to do with you. But you didn't let me off and even hit me." "That's enough." The eldest senior brother stopped the young boxer from refuting and said, "You don't have to continue to add fuel to the fire. Little sister, come here." He reached out and waved at the receptionist who was standing next to him. You tell me, is what this guest said true? The eldest senior brother kindly asked the receptionist. He's right. The receptionist hesitated for a moment, and said truthfully, he did come to look for senior brother Fule, but teacher Chio said it for the good of the martial arts school, because he also said that he had a grudge with senior brother Fule. That's right. Eldest senior brother, shouldn't our martial arts school be united? How can we let an outsider casually find trouble with our brothers? The fierce-looking boxer at this time stood up and said, Dear guest, I think what my junior brothers said is not wrong, right? The eldest senior brother cupped his hands and said to Poplar Fruit, I don't know what kind of grudge you have with our junior brother Fule, but if you find trouble with him in our martial arts school, my junior brothers have the right to intervene. I thought you were a sensible person, but I didn't expect you to continue to be biased indiscriminately, Poplar Fruit said with a sneer. So today I still have to fight with you one by one, before I can go find Fule, right? You can't say it like that. Our master has always told us to cultivate our character when practicing martial arts. We can't casually cause trouble for others. Eldest senior brother still smiled at Poplar Fruit and said, If you have anything to say to junior brother Fule, I can help you call him back. Blackie, you go and make the call. Yes. The fierce-looking boxer walked inside with an annoyed expression. However, we still have to talk about how you injured our boxer. At this time, the eldest senior brother said seriously, Those who open a martial arts school pay attention to the issue of face. You injured our martial arts master, which is equivalent to humiliating our Guo family martial arts school. If we let you do whatever you want, then how can we still open our martial arts school? It's better not to open a martial arts school like this that hides filth and raises a bunch of drunkards and scoundrels. Poplar Fruit sneered. Today, it could be said that he was adding fuel to the fire. He was already annoyed by Fule and the others, and now, he was repeatedly obstructed. Group after group of people refused to give up, making Poplar Fruit extremely angry. His words were not polite anymore. You came to our martial arts school today to cause trouble, right? At this time, the eldest senior brother could no longer hold back his anger. He removed his smile and glared at Poplar Fruit. The four boxers behind him also glared and clenched their fists. If it weren't for the eldest senior brother, they would have already rushed up to teach Poplar Fruit a lesson. After saying so much, you still want to fight? Then what's the point of all this nonsense? At this time, Poplar Fruit made a shingy fist starting gesture, and coldly looked at the boxers from the Guo family martial arts school. Today he planned to use shingy fist to dampen their spirit. Eldest senior brother, you don't have to do it. I'll do it. One of the boxers strode forward and said to the eldest senior brother, Liang Zitsong, don't use too much force. The eldest senior brother didn't force him and nodded. Even a clay figurine would have some anger. He tried to persuade Poplar Fruit for a while. Seeing that Poplar Fruit was still as arrogant as before, he also wanted to teach Poplar Fruit a lesson. However, his temperament was more upright. When he let the inner martial arts school's best boxers attack, he still couldn't help but remind Poplar Fruit. Liang Zitsong nodded and stood still. Then, he followed up with an azure dragon out at sea and a collapsing punch. Xingyi Fist was different from Tai Chi. Most of its fighting styles were short and direct. It was mostly used to kill enemies in the military. There was no such thing as waiting for the enemy to attack. Therefore, Poplar Fruit was used to waiting for the opponent to attack. The more orthodox Liang Zitsong directly attacked. Poplar Fruit wasn't afraid. He stepped forward and used a horizontal punch to parry Liang Zitsong's collapsing punch. Then he returned an even more powerful punch. Liang Zitsong had some martial arts. He turned around and dodged. Then he raised his drilling punch and punched towards Poplar Fruit's ribs. Taking a step back, Poplar Fruit slightly dodged Liang Zitsong's punch. Then he threw a collapsing punch back. The speed of his punch was even faster. Liang Zitsong only had time to raise his arm to block it. Liang Zitsong shook his arm as he retreated. His entire arm was numb from Poplar Fruit's punch. Poplar Fruit didn't follow up with another attack. Instead, he stood still and looked at him. Actually, if he used the Tai Chi that Poplar Fruit was most familiar with, Liang Zitsong would have been defeated long ago. he wouldn't have had the chance to exchange punches. However, Poplar Fruit wanted to use Xingyi Fist. Moreover, he held back his strength. That was why they were entangled for a few rounds. The pain in Liang Zizong's arm lessened a little. After all, he was often beaten when he practiced martial arts or fought in competitions. He rested for a few breaths and pounced forward again. Chop fist. Poplar Fruit pressed down on Liang Zizong's fist. His right fist turned into a palm and slapped along Liang Zizong's arm to his chest. Poplar Fruit didn't use any strength at all, because the chest was connected to the heart and lungs. If he used any strength, Liang Zizong would probably vomit blood. Poplar Fruit decided to let him go for the sake of the eldest senior brother's warning of don't use too much strength. However, Liang Zizong took 2 steps back and looked at his chest. He didn't stop. He felt that he had been beaten back by Poplar Fruit so many times today. He was a little embarrassed. He shouted and rushed forward again. The eldest senior brother was tactful. He saw some clues and was about to shout for him to stop. However, he was still a step too late. Poplar Fruit scolded in his heart. You really don't want face when I'm giving you face. He originally wanted to stop, but the other party didn't let him go. He became angry. Poplar Fruit didn't retreat. Instead, he stepped forward and used his strength to block Liang Zizong's fist. He raised his palm and hit the back of Liang Zizong's arm. Liang Zizong didn't react because Poplar Fruit was too fast. Liang Zizong bent his arm and Poplar Fruit leaned forward. He bent his leg and twisted his body to elbow Liang Zizong. Although he held back his strength, the elbow still hit Liang Zizong's stomach. Liang Zizong directly knelt down and almost vomited last night's meal. A few of the younger martial artists quickly ran forward and helped Liang Zizong up. Although he got up, he still looked like he was in pain. In fact, not to mention Liang Zizong, anyone who was hit in the stomach by an elbow would also be unable to take it. Liang Zizong had only gone up for a few minutes before he lost again. The Guo family martial arts dojo people looked at each other. Finally, their eyes fell on the eldest senior brother who was the best in martial arts. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to. Chapter 255. Senior brother, Shirtu said he'll be back in half an hour. The fierce-looking boxer called back and stood behind the senior brother. Okay, we'll deal with you and junior brother Fulei later. Now I'll deal with you and our martial arts school. The senior brother waved his hand and the others stepped back. His hands were hanging down like claws. And then he raised his left leg and bent it slightly. With a shake of his waist, he swung his arms powerfully. With one palm forward and the other pressing down, he looked at Yang Guo. His powerful aura seemed to transform into the sound of a tiger's roar as it pounced on Yang Guo. Poplar Fruit's eyes lit up. He vaguely found the intent that he had been searching for so long in the senior brother's body. At this moment, he also assumed the Xingyi Fist starting position and began to exchange blows with each other. I don't know who you learned Xingyi Fist from, but your moves are very standard. It's a pity that you can't reach the next level, the senior brother said in a deep voice. The other juniors of the Xingyi Martial School looked at their eldest senior brother with admiration. Their hearts were filled with envy. In the entire school, only their master and their eldest senior brother had reached the realm of intent. They had already received so many awards that their hands went soft. Even if they worked hard, they still couldn't find the door. Today they were able to observe the senior brother's kung fu at a close distance. It was a good opportunity to learn. Whether it's enough or not, we'll only know after we fight. Poplar Fruit smiled. Regardless of whether he could deal with Fu Lei and the others today, it was worth it to see a master. Take this. Eldest senior brother warned and rushed forward. Xingyi Fist's moves were mostly evolved by imitating the movements of animals pouncing on food or defending themselves. The moves were varied and the combinations were even more unpredictable. The senior brother stepped forward and his fists were like a green dragon or a snake. He moved from left to right and went straight for Poplar Fruit's neck. His aura changed as well. It changed from the majestic might of a tiger to the unfathomable hiss of a snake. Poplar Fruit's eyes were so sharp that he could see through his opponent's intentions. However, this was the first time they had exchanged blows, so he did not dare to take it head-on. Instead, he twisted his body and punched his opponent's forearm. This punch of his actually missed. Seeing Poplar Fruit's body move, eldest senior brother immediately changed his move. His right arm pressed down, and his left hand turned into a palm, chopping towards Poplar Fruit's ear. Due to the fact that this palm strike was hurried, the strength behind it wasn't great. However, due to the inertia of the body, if it were to hit, even if the other party didn't feel dizzy, the other party would still feel dizzy for a moment. Poplar Fruit raised his leg and lightly tapped the ground. Like a swallow, he turned around and dodged the attack. After standing still, eldest senior brother did not chase after him. He also steadied himself and sized up Poplar Fruit again. Poplar Fruit took 2 steps back and carefully observed his opponent. It seemed that there was a mistake in his judgment. Both of them had the same thought, especially Yang Guo. At first, he thought that the eldest senior brother was at Yang Zhengdong's level, but this judgment was wrong. He didn't know if the eldest senior brother's reaction speed had been trained in will, but it was faster than he thought. If he only used Xingyi Fist, it would be difficult to deal with him. Poplar Fruit thought to himself. However, he was not a person who would back down easily. The harder the opponent was to deal with, the more enthusiasm he would have to compete. Poplar Fruit rarely took the initiative to attack today. He did not hold back. Every punch he threw out was 70 to 80% of his strength. Under the speed of his punches, there was even a faint sound of thunder breaking through the air. Collapsing fist, horizontal fist, chopping fist, and collapsing fist again. Eldest senior brother's face was calm as he steadily parried. He did not show any weakness and continuously threw out hundreds of moves. Black dragon stirring pillar, step forward cross fist, fierce tiger pouncing on its prey, step forward drilling fist, step forward crushing fist, and turn around chopping fist. In fact, Poplar Fruit was much weaker when it came to Xingyi Fist. Sometimes, he would constantly retreat to block, and then rely on his inhuman reaction speed to find an opening to counterattack. Later on, Poplar Fruit simply stopped blocking and took a punch. He felt that there was no problem, so he exchanged one punch for another. He would not let his opponent take advantage of him. This time, the two's punches really hit the flesh. In the empty space of the dojo, the sound of punching sandbags could be heard. And this time, they were hitting the body. Hearing this, the girl at the front desk could not help but cry out in pain for them. Although Poplar Fruit was thin and weak, his muscles were actually very strong. With the internal strength circulating in his body, he would be fine even if he took a few more punches. After all, eldest senior brother's body was still that of an ordinary person. Under the bombardment of Poplar Fruit's heavy punches, he only felt a slight pain in his muscles at first, but then it became numb for a while. That was a good fight. After temporarily separating, Poplar Fruit excitedly patted his chest. Except for Meng Sanhua, he had never found an opponent who could fight with him like this. Again. As soon as he finished speaking, he went up to eldest senior brother again. Come on, eldest senior brother. Several pugilists from the martial arts club cheered for their eldest senior brother, and the students of the martial arts club gradually gathered around, mesmerized. The charm of martial arts was not only to cultivate one's body and mind. Most of the time, people liked martial arts and admired its violent aesthetics, although few people were willing to admit it. The fight between Poplar Fruit and eldest senior brother would inspire many martial arts enthusiasts. Eldest senior brother listened to the cheers of his juniors and felt bitter. He had never thought that Poplar Fruit would fight with his life on the line. A punch for a punch, a life for a life? This was not a war. Was there a need to fight like this? Eldest senior brother was hurt, so he did not want to continue wasting time with Poplar Fruit. He became energetic again, and fought with Poplar Fruit using the body movement of Xingyi Fist. Seeing eldest senior brother's rapid and agile movements, Poplar Fruit's eyes lit up. He thought to himself, the body movement of Xingyi Fist. This was probably a secret because Poplar Fruit had never found a detailed diagram of it before, and had never practiced it. He was excited. As he fought, He diverted some of his attention to memorize and learn eldest senior brother's body movement. However, Xingyi Fist's fighting style was still about fighting head-on. Although some styles were bold and powerful, some were compact and precise, and some were steady and solid, they were still the same. One could imagine that when two armies were fighting, the situation would be chaotic and enemies would be everywhere. How would there be any room for you to dodge and maneuver? If you did not advance, you would be pushed back. If you retreated, you would die. As the eldest senior brother dodged, his momentum weakened a lot. Only a few of the onlookers could see that the fist intent of the eldest senior brother was actually unable to raise its head under the pressure of Yanggua. In fact, Poplar Fruit did not press too hard. In order to learn the body movement of Xingyi Fist, he even left some space for eldest senior brother. However, after he memorized the body movement, he realized that it was not as nimble and practical as his own Taiji Fist. Xingyi Fist's body movement was used to supplement the body movement. It made the body movement difficult to predict. Using it for dodging was really bad. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Everyone, please use your votes to support the poor. Greater than over equal to, that you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.